Good evening. Noting the time and the presence of quorum on the Select Board, I'd like to call this December 15th, 2025 meeting of the Acton Select Board to order. It's now 6 p.m. We're at Town Hall. And we will start, as we usually do, with resident concerns. And we're going to stick to a 3-minute limit on resident concerns. Mr. Cote.
Is this mic good? Yes, it is. Okay. Hi, folks. Good to see you again. I'm Glenn Cody. I was elected to the school committee to represent Acton earlier this year. I'm your select board liaison. I do know that Acton leadership group met recently, so some of what I'm about to say, probably some of you already know a good chunk of it, but just for those watching at home who may have watched, who may not have seen the last school committee meeting or interested in what we did last time, I'll just give an update on what we did on December 4th. So we opened the meeting with talking about different tiers of instructional framework. The way we organize instructing kids, there's like tier 1 for the most broad general level support, and then it whittles down to more intervening and more hands-on support for kids that need some extra help. So we covered varying tiers of instruction, presented. We heard a little bit from staff about how they're doing more cross-grade collaboration. So say like, hey, if you're teaching this in 3rd grade, it'd be really useful if they knew X, Y, and Z by the time they get to 4th grade, 5th grade, so on and so forth. That include like consistent classroom routines, welcoming practices. It really helps if the kid feels welcome at school. And kids are self-reporting that they do, which is fantastic. And just maximizing learning time. And then of course the biggest chunk we're dealing with is AB Forward. That's our district-wide restructuring process. We overviewed the steering committee's full sequence and procedure all the way from spring to December. We had 13 reorganization concepts first introduced, narrowed it down to 9, discerned there, narrowed it down to 5. We had over 2,000 participants through forums, surveys, and focus groups. This represents one of the largest school district comprehensive engagement efforts ever in Acton's history. So now we have left with basically 2 groups of remaining options. The first bucket is more like maintain the existing elementary structure with like small enrollment per school, current K through 6 configuration. And then on the other hand, it's sort of exploring new building uses for things like grade banded models and using existing facilities. 30 seconds left. I make a motion for 10 million more minutes. The school committee focused last meeting on those options, and now we're moving from recommendation to decision time. And so we discerned on December 4th, we focused on student experience, program stability, and then what I'm reading that the select board is perhaps most concerned with balancing fiscal constraints and long-term sustainability. We take that very seriously, and hopefully we're communicating to the best of our ability what all that funding is going for, and then I'm basically out of time. Last 10 seconds, continuing deliberations this Thursday, final vote on January 22nd, and between then on January 8th, we'll have time for more extensive community input, and public comment is welcome at any time through our website. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else? Okay, moving ahead. The one update that I have is acknowledgement that Carol Lake, who was our first senior center director and really a fine woman, has passed on after a long illness. I probably knew Carol for about 50 years, and she was just a delightful person, and she grew our senior center and council on aging operation from basically a closet and rental space at the Baptist church all the way through to the senior center that we eventually acquired at Audubon Hill. And that kind of laid the groundwork for the really great operation we have right now. I think population of town probably increased by at least a third since her time here. And really, we owe her a great debt of gratitude. Her husband, Norm Lake, who was a selectman here for a number of years, ended up getting a bridge named after him. So I hope we can start pondering not necessarily a bridge, but something appropriate to remember Carol by. That's all I've got. John.
Thank you. I just wanted to take the opportunity, we mentioned and we try to highlight that we get grants through the work of our department seeking competitively grants to offset costs of services. In addition to grants, we also are very successful with collaborating with our state delegation, and they are able to put earmarks into the state budget each of the last several years to help offset some of our capital needs. In the last year, we've had a few. We just got, here's the check right here, actually. They dropped it off the other day. We're gonna head down to the bank after this. But we had, you know, we're trying to turn over we're trying to replace all the turnout gear for the fire department. And we have earmark of $25,000 from the state legislature to help with that. And also, we're trying to replace all of our radio infrastructure, and they gave us $25,000 for that. So it goes a long way when we're coming to town meeting. We went to town meeting last year and asked for, I think it was $40,000 for turnout gear. We were able to supplement that extra money right there to offset the cost of doing the work. So exciting example of collaboration and support we're getting from our state delegation. And I wanted to mention that. I also wanted to mention that RAC will be presenting tonight, but Evan White is our new town engineer, assistant DPW director. He's going to come sit up with us for the presentation, and I just wanted to give him a chance to say hello to the board. I don't know if you met him yet, but he's doing a great job. He's off and running a few months. When did you start?
September 12th.
September, so started in September. He's doing a great job.
Thank you, John. Yeah, Alyssa and I were both at the presentation from the legislators at the North Acton Fire Station last week. And I think what we find significant is that the town manager's office and the fire department, all the town departments are really doing an excellent job of going out and finding grants and getting these things approved. So certainly thank you to our legislative delegation, but also to town staff for doing such a great job. And I think it's particularly important that both of those grants deal specifically with firefighter safety. And I think it's putting a marker down, not only from the legislature, but also from us here, that we support keeping our employees safe. So with that, I'll see if any of my colleagues have any comments. Alyssa.
Thank you. I just wanted to announce that Wednesday night, at what time? 6 o'clock, I think? Yep, 6 o'clock. Next door to Town Hall at the Red House will be the ceremonial menorah lighting. If you drove to Town Hall after dark, you probably saw that there are already 2 lights lit up, but at 6 o'clock, Rabbi Bram David and Cantor Sarah Spearer from Congregation Beth Elohim will be here with the community. I believe there will be some singing and probably some snacks. This is the first year I'll be able to go to it, so hopefully I'll be able to see a lot of you there as well.
Jim.
Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. in this room, or via Zoom, the planning board meets, and they have a number of things on their agenda, but I wanted to call out 2 of them in particular. The first is a public hearing about the updated subdivision rules and regulations. This is follow-up work to the Habitat for All bylaw that passed at our last town meeting that changes our default subdivision model from the sort of the standard, break up a gigantic piece of land into little lots into a plan that starts with protecting the natural resources and then leaves a smaller part of the land for houses that are more closely clustered together. There's a lot of details to make that happen, and that's in the rules and regulations. The other thing that the planning board is doing is having their first, perhaps of more than one, hearing on a cell tower application for Charter Road. We have a peripheral role in that tonight as one of our agenda items, but the main action happens in front of the planning board. What else? Oh, the Acton, the Health and Human Services Department and the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Office are leading an effort called Acton for Proaction. It's a grant-supported new townwide effort to help make Acton healthier and welcoming. As part of this project, there's a whole bunch of different focus groups and community meetings. I wanted to call out one, which was a focus group centering the perspectives of community members with disabilities. Anyone's welcome, but we're particularly focused on that particular community that night. That's on Tuesday, January 6th. At either 10 a.m. or 6 p.m. You can go to either one, depending on, how your energy and schedule works. There'll be a lot more publicity about this as December wraps up and January begins with all sorts of outreach to all sorts of different groups. So keep your eyes open for that. I just wanted to follow up on the menorah. So, we lit the second night candles at home tonight, and, there's that tinge of sadness because of the murders that took place in Australia on the first night of Hanukkah. But it also felt a sense of defiance, like we're putting light out. It's the Festival of Lights, and we're putting light out at a time when some people with evil intentions are trying to spread darkness. So it felt like just the right thing to do. That's it.
Thank you. Fran?
I was also wanting to add that it's our third annual menorah lighting, so that's exciting, and it's a great community event. And I also wanted to mention, and maybe this for a future agenda, Lawrence Powers of Powers Gallery presented to the Economic Development Committee. His property is on the market, and he wanted to approach the town with the possibility of being interested in purchasing. It's a great piece of history, the John Robbins House, so maybe we can talk about that at a future agenda. Thank you, that's it.
Thank you. Okay. So we're going to have a presentation by the Water Resources Advisory Committee. One warning that I would give you is that we do have a public hearing scheduled for 6:30, so I'll have to break in and just make the announcement of that public hearing, and then you can resume your discussion. So just when I wave my hands, and I'll let Alyssa lead this off. Surprise.
Surprise. So I do have some things that I wanted to say, but I was planning to say them after the presentation. I will, I guess, start off by sharing that this report is much more thorough and lengthy than I could have hoped possible. The RAC members Water Resources Advisory Committee members have been working very, very hard, both during meetings and outside of meetings. I will start off, I guess, maybe to set the stage for the phenomenal work that you will see in the presentation and also in the report. One of the things that the RAC members discussed was whether or not to include their biographies in the report, but looking at all of the reports that have been created by boards and committees for the town, for the select board specifically, over the previous decades, they couldn't find an example of that. So they voted unanimously not to include biographies. So in the report, you'll just see committee member names. But I just wanted to share for the board members who may not be familiar, as well as the public, that the folks on this committee have backgrounds in mechanical engineering, electrical engineering and physics, water resource management, water and wastewater utility management, watershed assessment and management, stormwater management. There are former and current members of the Water District Commission and Finance Committee, members with backgrounds in hydrogeology, environmental science, and environmental modeling. So we have a group of true experts here who have provided this great report. And I also wanted to share that I went back to look at the scope of work that they created for us last year. And this is in alignment with what they promised to deliver to us. And I just wanted to point out for folks who may not know why this, Joe's going to tell us why it was commissioned, but this is a stormwater system management and funding feasibility study. So there may be a lot of things that different members of the public wish were included, but the RAC delivered what we had asked for, which is a funding feasibility study. So I'll let Joe take it away.
Well, first, thank you all very much. We appreciate the opportunity to be here. This is exciting for me. And last week, I emailed you a copy of the report that you just mentioned. It's this right here. If you go to Staples, it's pretty expensive to print it out, so maybe use other resources. It's a stormwater management and funding feasibility study, and we tried to build on the work that was done by Woodard and Kern. In fact, there's a section in here that summarizes that work, and it was an attempt to take a next step in how do we move towards a more sustainable stormwater system here in Acton. I'll just give you a brief overview of this report. I can't all the detail. It'll be like great winter reading for you. The rest of the RAC committee is here for support, so if you have questions, they're all here to help out. So I'll do my best to give you an overview of this report. Tom, we can go to the next. Okay, so this presentation will review the stormwater infrastructure that we know about in town and touch on stormwater regulations. I'll present some arguments for why we should think about increasing the amount of money that we spend on maintaining and improving our stormwater system. We'll talk about some management and funding options. We'll also present a summary of public feedback to you all and give you some recommendations. Okay, so I think you all have seen this before, but just to reset the stage, we have the Stormwater Asset Management Plan is the report that was done in 2023 by Woodard and Kern. And you can see the bullets there. You know, they inspected 109 out of 133 known culverts, 49 out of 54 detention basins, and then around 11,000 feet out of a known over 400,000 total feet. So one of the first messages is that assessment process of going out and inspecting the stormwater infrastructure is an ongoing process. And in addition, the condition of our stormwater infrastructure changes over time. So just because we did it once doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue to do it. They did a ranking process where they looked at the probability of failure and then the consequence of failure and did a ranking. And 22 culverts and seven storm drains were recommended for immediate or high priority corrective action. And 27 detention basins were identified as needing structural repair or large-scale maintenance. So they also put together a capital improvement plan. And they have three different scenarios. That's the three columns that you see on the right side of the table. The first scenario was a slow spending rate. It was replacing culverts maybe once every few years. It didn't have any maintenance activities in it, so it really wasn't, in my opinion, a realistic estimate of what it would cost to maintain our system. The second column, scenario 2, focused on priority capital improvement. So that's taking care of these high or immediate priority repairs, but that didn't have maintenance either. So the third column, I think, is where we should direct our attention, which is priority capital improvements plus annual maintenance. And if you put that over a 10-year period, they're essentially saying that we should be spending somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 million a year. So that was their take back in 2023 on the level of spending. Okay, Tom. Okay, so this is a list of federal, state, and Town of Acton regulations that apply to this topic. They require the Town of Acton to implement a stormwater program. The regulations require us to do, this is just 6 things, there's actually many more, but these are the 6 categories that I can give to you today. Public education and outreach on stormwater impacts, public involvement and participation, illicit discharge detection and elimination, construction site stormwater runoff control, post-construction stormwater management and new development and redevelopment, and then pollution prevention and good housekeeping for municipal operations. So in addition to these regulations, there's also numerous guidance documents out there of how you should do these things. So there's a lot there, and there's a whole section in the report that goes into that. But these are the drivers for why we need to do these things. So, okay, Tom. All right, so these are the arguments for why we should consider an increased spending rate on stormwater infrastructure. So first, critical infrastructure repairs and upgrades. We need funding to finish the infrastructure surveys that were started, and funding is needed to implement renewal and replacement of immediate and high priority structures. Chapter U, which covers discharge to separate storm drain systems, we need funding there for routine inspections, cleaning of storm drains, investigation and elimination of illicit discharges, and street sweeping, which I took that picture right in front of my house, so you can see I get excited when those things happen. And then there's Chapter X, which is stormwater management and erosion and sediment control. Funding's needed to implement best management practices for existing stormwater systems and develop new infrastructure to manage runoff effectively. And then lastly is this topic of severe weather. It's becoming more frequent and intense, putting increased pressure on Acton's stormwater infrastructure. And then finally, to safeguard public health, property, and the environment, we must proactively invest in upgrading our stormwater management systems. Okay, John. Okay, so this is the crux of, this is the work that we did. This is an original flow chart that the RAC put together that we tried to, what we did is looked at what many towns in Massachusetts are doing with their stormwater systems. We looked at the state regulations regarding the establishment of stormwater utilities. We put our heads together. I tried to use artificial intelligence for this and it didn't work. But the rest of the committee came up with what we think is a reasonable structure. So it goes from the top to the bottom, and I'll just walk you through it. So on the top left, spending rate options. We think it would be a good idea to decide the level of funding that's needed. So if you look at the Woodard and Curran report, do you agree that it should be $1 million a year for 10 years? Or another option would be maybe focus on some of the highest priority items, and when those repairs are being made, take a look at that steel culvert that you're pulling out of the ground. Was it as corroded as they thought? Was there more life left in it? Or was that imminent, was failure imminent? So getting feedback and adjusting the rate of spending. That's the top left. On the top right is the management options. The current approach has the DPW implementing the stormwater program under the oversight of the town manager and assistant town manager and under your oversight. You could continue with that. Another option, what other towns are doing, is creating an organization, like a stormwater management committee or a group that would provide strategic direction, not necessarily oversight of every small detail, but think about the Acton Water District and the commission that oversees that. So something like that is possible. While you're doing all of that, then you can get into the financing options. We've got long-term borrowing, property taxes, and then stormwater fee. This is, I think, an area where there needs to be debate. And just to give a little bit of detail, The long-term borrowing is certainly one approach that we're using that right now. Property taxes would be an approach that allows stormwater to be funded within the confines of Prop 2.5, so some people are going to like it for that reason. Stormwater fee, which many towns around us are implementing, there's lots of flavors of this. One is a fixed fee, so each parcel has a fee. And then another approach is basing it on impervious area. And that's where you would calculate how big is the roof on your house, how big is your driveway, do you have a sidewalk? These are impervious surfaces that contribute stormwater to the town's stormwater management system. So you could generate a fee that's proportional to the contribution of stormwater. A lot of towns are doing that right now. From there, you need to figure out how to manage the money. So the stormwater funding options, you have the general fund. That we're doing some of that right now with property taxes going into the general fund and using that for stormwater. And then the other two options are revolving fund and enterprise fund. Those are funds that are set up, that would be set up with the express purpose of funding a stormwater program. And there's differences between the two of them. I'm sure some of you have more expertise than I do in that, but many towns are using revolving funds. And in fact, Acton has a revolving fund for stormwater already. So making decisions on how you're going to manage the money is the middle part of the flow chart. Then these last 5 or 6 rows are really how you socialize all of this. So our suggestion is that you would need to come up with some sort of estimate of what the cost might be to parcel owners, and then select a funding plan, select a management plan, and put those into a stormwater funding and management plan. It would be a document that says, okay, here's how we've gone through this flow chart. This is the process that we think is appropriate for the town of Acton. And then socialize that, and you'd receive feedback from stakeholders, including the FinCom, the public. And depending on how that feedback goes, you could, if it's negative, you could revise that plan, take a different approach that takes into account some changes, or you could go to town meeting and make changes to existing funding or create new funds. So that's the overall structure. I should say that it's not a linear thing. You're not going to start at the top and go to the bottom and be done. It'll be a loop, right? That you likely have to repeat some portions of it. So that is that's the flow chart. And okay, so we can go to the next slide now. I've included this slide in the next slide. I'm not going to read this to you. This is a table out of the report. I've included this simply to let you know that there's quite a bit more detail about the revolving fund and the stormwater utility and the characteristics of them compared to the status quo of what we're doing right now using the DPW. So that is in section 5 of the report, and there's good information in there for you. Okay, Tom, we can do that and then go to the next one even after that. Yeah, one more. Okay, great. So now we had 2 different public outreach events. And the first one was here in this room in May of this year, and we had about 20 people. And then we did an online survey that asked the same questions, but we just sent it out in one of those kind of survey links. And both events included information about Acton's prior expenditures for stormwater maintenance and upgrades, as well as recommendations for future spending, which is shown on these graphs. And the upper figure shows the historical spending on stormwater. For many years, the routine maintenance has been funded primarily through a revolving fund, which is obtained from fees assessed to businesses and multifamily homeowners. The amount collected through these fees, you can see, was around $100,000 a year. In the past 2 years, the town has allocated approximately $900K for stormwater for major repairs to these conduits in response to the study that showed that there's significant problems with some of our stormwater culverts. The lower figure is a chart that we created that we took the long-term borrowing spending plan recommended in a recent town report, and the red bars are the borrowing, and then the blue bars are the debt service on that. And so, we don't know the specific details of the borrowing, but we just assumed, well, what if these were 15-year loans at 4.25%? The total amount borrowed would be a little more than 11 million, and you'd be paying back about 15 million. Okay, so how did people react to this information? Next slide. So this first one is the May outreach. So this was the in-person event. And here, 85% of the respondents at the outreach event placed high priority on stormwater infrastructure funding. And if you look on the right side, in response to the question of which funding approach would you prefer, there was an even split there between limited borrowing for urgent repairs versus creation of a new stormwater utility. And nobody at that event was in favor of borrowing. So then we'll go to the next slide. So this next slide is a summary of the online survey. And on the left side, in terms of what priority would you place on stormwater infrastructure funding, a large majority indicated that they viewed stormwater funding to be of moderate or high importance. And then on the right side, most favor the creation of a new stormwater utility that would raise money for that utility through the imposition of fees. So I'll move on to the next slide and try to walk you through our recommendations and the rationale for them. So next slide, Tom. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Perfect. Okay, so we think that the stormwater management system here in Acton is at a critical juncture because of three converging pressures. You've got aging infrastructure, the stormwater infrastructure, increasing regulatory requirements, and then changing climate conditions. Those are the three drivers that are happening right now. And our report concluded that business as usual is not going to help meet our needs, and we need to make changes so that we can face rising, we can avoid emergency costs, potential non-compliance penalties, and the risks associated with flooding, property damage, and water quality degradation. So how do we address those? That's what these four bullets are. So first, here we're actually saying critically analyze Woodard and Kern's recommendations to spend $10 million. We're suggesting that it may be a better approach to the big ticket items are these culverts. They're the ones that are like $750 or $1 million to replace. We suggest maybe doing a limited number of those projects and looking at that infrastructure and calibrating the engineering inspection to understand, was this truly an emergency or not? So that's our first, is to kind of critically evaluate the Woodard and Kern report. The next recommendation is finding an alternative to borrowing, to annual borrowing. Based on our outreach, there was little support for the current stormwater funding plan, which calls for annual borrowing of $1 million over 10 years. There was much more support for a financing approach that would limit borrowing over the next decade to $5 million or create a new stormwater utility that would generate revenue through fees paid by the parcel owners. The third recommendation is assess a stormwater fee or institute a recurring tax-funded budget item to finance annual maintenance and repairs. So from our perspective, sustainable means that it's always there, that the source of funding is dedicated. And so we think that could be, that could help guarantee a regular maintenance and critical repairs without the need for allocations from excess cash or a vote at a special town meeting. We would like to note, though, one kind of caveat on this third one is that if recurring tax-funded option is the preferred approach, it would be best to have some mechanism to ensure that those funds cannot be reallocated to some other project. That's the definition of sustainable for us, is that the money's dedicated. And then lastly, we think that creating some group to provide strategic planning and policy for stormwater management will be beneficial. We think that the stormwater system, it's underground. You don't see it very often. It's kind of overlooked, but it's an essential resource, and we should treat it that way. If the town chooses to establish a stormwater utility, it could be led by appointed or elected commissioners. Alternatively, if the town prefers to keep the existing management structure, an advisory committee could be formed to provide strategic planning and policy recommendations to the select board. We look forward to helping you work on this. So we're at your disposal, and we greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight, and we'll try to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. The time has arrived for, I have to make this announcement for a public hearing, which is going to be deferred anyway, so bear with me. The Acton Select Board will hold a public hearing on December 15th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m., continued to November 3rd, 2025, in the Francis Faulkner Hearing Room 204 at the Town Hall, 472 Main Street, Acton, and virtually at actonma.gov/meeting/SB, on the application of Hawthorn Realty Company for a site plan special permit Under zoning bylaw, section 10.4, the applicant proposes to combine the properties at 471 Great Road and 465 to 469 Great Road and construct two buildings to be used as building trade shops. No hazardous materials or waste are to be generated on site. Application materials and how to participate remotely are available online and at Acton Town Hall, doc.actonma.gov/ds/view/collection-19387. The applicant has requested to continue to January 12th, 2026 at 6:30 PM. If I could get a motion? Mr. Martin.
I move that we continue this public hearing on January 12th, 2026 at 6:30 PM in this room.
Second. Oh,
Moved and seconded to continue. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions. Thank you, and back to the business at hand. Alyssa, would you like to make comments, or?
Sure. Thank you very much for the presentation, all members for the work on the report. I have a couple of questions, and I think I'll start with the hardest one. So in the report is a summary of the public input, the small number of respondents to the survey and attendees to the forum, 100. And it seems that the majority favored a stormwater utility. And I also noted that in the table 5.3, the financial capacity impacts of recurring and intermittent funding sources, that shows significant advantages of a utility in terms of revenue sufficiency, stability, community support, affordability impact. So I'm curious about the fact that the RAC has stopped short of recommending specifically a stormwater utility and as the preferred sustainable funding method, and left it up to further debate to create a utility with an enterprise fund or a recurring tax-funded budget item. So I'm just wondering if you could speak to the other committee members' views on that and why consensus was not reached to make one recommendation for a specific mechanism.
I'll give my answer to that, and then maybe there's some others that perhaps would answer as well, if that's okay. So my thought on that is that a stormwater utility certainly is a good option. We believe that it has the ability to be a sustainable methodology, and I actually don't think that even though we got responses from 100 people, I think that is significant in terms of public feedback. And so, but we also recognize that there are a variety of ways to go about this, and so that's why we put together the flow chart, was to help guide through that process. But I'd like to see if anybody else on the committee has a response to your question, Alyssa. Yeah, this is Ron Parenti.
I guess I'll take responsibility for not having a strong opinion that we should support only a stormwater utility. It was, many members of the committee felt that we should recommend only a stormwater utility. But I guess it was my view, which prevailed in the final vote, that we should leave the select board the option of choosing some other way to establish some sort of a sustainable funding mechanism. And I didn't want to, it was debated, but it was my feeling that we should really offer the select board a couple of options, and although we did definitely favor the stormwater utility.
I just have one question, and this hopefully is a little bit easier. There are some hypothetical tables about what fees might look like depending on whether or not there's a flat fee implemented or based on percentage of property that's not percentage, but the total amount of impervious surface. And looking at the potential annual fees, a reader of this report might conclude that if we go with this, my annual bill is going to be 200. If we go with this option, it'll be 100. If we go with this option, it'll be $50. Is that a good conclusion for folks to draw from that, or is the calculation much more complicated?
Those were meant to illustrate how you would go about doing that calculation, and we intentionally made those numbers not representative of a town. If you're interested to see what other, what fees might be, I think you don't have to look further than the towns around us to see what likely stormwater fees would be.
All right, thank you. I guess the last thing that I want to say is not really a question, but just to the board. I feel that as we move forward, I would recommend continued involvement of the Water Resources Advisory Committee, at least one or two members, definitely a member of the Finance Committee, and the Select Board as part of any working group that is created by either Public Works staff or a consultant as we move forward and continue to explore this process.
Thank you. David?
Thank you, and thank you for this report. I thought it was excellent. I think that regular funds are really, as you say in the report, regular funds are really important to this process for planning purposes. If the funds are irregular, you can't say that you can't slot in a project for 3 years from now or something like that. I will say that general fund budgeted revenue will never be regular. Next year's town meeting cannot tell the year after's town meeting that you must allocate $800,000, and they can't tell the following town meeting that they need to allocate $800,000. So general fund town meeting revenue will always be variable, even if we put in the same request every year. And one of the reasons for that too in the general fund is that the financial conditions change from year to year. I mean, some years free cash is robust, some years free cash is not robust. Some years, we may have a funding, the funding is very tight between the town and the schools, and some years it's less tight. A fee-based revenue source is the only way to get regular funding. Actually, I prefer and the report talks a little bit in the same way that the fee based on impervious surface seems to me to be fair and to guide developers in the right way moving forward when they're making things like walkways and patios and everything else. That if they're impervious, they, depending on how the regulations were written, they may not count against them for the stormwater fee, which I think is good. My only quibble with the report is that borrowing as a financing option was mixed in with tax revenue, general tax revenue and fee revenue. Borrowing is not a source of money. Borrowing is a tactic to get something done, expensive done. And so it'd be nice if we could borrow and then not pay it back, but indeed, it's always paid back with either tax revenue or if we move forward with the possibility of a fee, then it would be paid back with fee revenue. And basically, we would need to borrow in any case where a project exceeded the revenues for a year, right? If we needed to build, if we decided to do fees which added up to, $700,000 a year, just saying. We had a $1.2 million culvert. Well, or even a bigger project. Maybe we're replacing some air piping in an area of town that costs $5 million, right? In that case, we're always going to be borrowing and then paying it back with that. So I think that in the couple places, the report gives the wrong impression that borrowing is really an alternative to the other two, and it's really not. It should be in a separate bubble in my mind, like in your flow charts and stuff. I'm, and having looked at this now several times over a couple of years, I'm pretty satisfied that, something approaching $1 million a year is the right level to, to be able to sustain our stormwater infrastructure. So I think that's a good working number. I think it could be a little bit less, especially in the fee-based situation, because again, you can plan, right? And so, and that really helps if you can say, well, we've got these, again, like the example I gave before, if you got these things scheduled for the next few years, we can slot this in year 4. That makes it much easier to do. So thank you very much for the report.
You're welcome.
Jim?
Thanks for doing this report. It's really clear. I especially appreciate the flow chart, because it's better than an outline, because it actually shows how things are connected and what has to happen first, and how different decisions flow into eventually a town meeting vote. So especially appreciate the thought that went into that. For some reason, I was left with particular questions that might not affect most of the town, which were about all those big subdivisions that are condos, structured as condos, so there's two kinds of questions. One is, they often have to construct and theoretically maintain some stormwater management-like features, retention basins and detention ponds and, all that. And I'm guessing that wasn't part of the Woodard and Curran inventory, and I'm guessing those are the responsibility of those condo associations, but I wanted to check those two assumptions with you.
Yeah, they did distinguish between town-owned and not town-owned. And so the numbers that I presented tonight were just the town responsibility ones. So yes, there certainly may be other detention basins at developments that wouldn't be the town's responsibility.
Okay. Related question would be, do we think that the town presumably requires in some way in the decisions that allow these subdivisions to maintain their infrastructure? But as far as you know, is there any attempt to enforce that? Is anybody inspecting all this private infrastructure to make sure that, subdivisions aren't causing a runoff to go directly into the streams and pollute our water?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that question, but I think it's a good question. I don't know if anybody in the town engineering department knows. Do we inspect private stormwater infrastructure?
We do at construction. We do inspections on those. As far as I know, ongoing private developments, no, I don't think anybody inspects those.
Okay, so puzzle for another day, in case there's a whole bunch of runoff polluting our streams. Oh, look, there's someone who might have something to say about this topic.
It's Chapter X that has the private inspections. Thanks,
Thank you.
Barry. Yeah, so yes, and that's during construction, as Evan mentioned, but then also after construction.
Okay, so there might be a Chapter X enforcement issue that would be interesting to
Yes.
look at. Okay,
Yes.
great, thanks.
Yes.
Jim, if they also connect, sorry.
The public wants to hear.
Yeah. Where a private anything connects to the town, because the town's roadways are considered the conveyance system for the stormwater system. Where they connect with the town's conveyance system, it relegates the right of the town to inspect what's coming off that system. The roads of a town are considered, just like it was underground, are considered part of the conveyance system for a stormwater management system.
Okay, got it. So there still might be some issues around, developments that are directly on streams or rivers, but anyway, just a sidebar. I agree with my colleagues that a reliable funding system is going to end up looking something like an enterprise fund or a revolving fund, and that a reliable source for that is going to be some kind of fee system, although I think there's, as you pointed out, there are a million options and details about how you actually, develop the funding for it. But as a rough outline, that does feel like the territory we should be exploring next. Thank you.
Fran?
I just have a quick thank you for the report. And I'm on board with some sort of utility fee structure. And I think the impervious makes the most sense to me. That's it, really.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I join my colleagues that we recognize the need for a predictable revenue source. I think everyone's on board with the idea of some sort of a stormwater utility, probably based on impervious surfaces. And the next piece beyond that is, I think we all understand that a roof or a paved driveway is impervious, and we should calculate that. I think the next level of detail is if you've got a maintained lawn, obviously the rate of runoff is higher on a maintained lawn than it would be in woods. So I think that will be some interesting discussions to be had in the future about how you're going to calculate that. But I think, we seem to have the technical capability of at least calculating those impervious surfaces. Oh, yeah. So I think that's great. And if indeed we start looking at charging extra for closely cropped, maintained lawns, maybe there's a financial incentive for folks to get away from those sorts of landscaping options and move to something that's a little more ecologically sensitive. So I thank you for the report. I'd like to open it up to see if we've got questions from the public. Yes, and we're going to try to keep the time down because we've got a line of people there, so we'll do the 3 minutes. Identify yourself, make sure you use the mic, lean into it. Thank you.
Sure. My name is Michael Watkins. I live at 607 Old Stonebrook, and I'm a longtime Acton resident. I sat in on several of the RAC meetings and would just echo what Alyssa said. They did a tremendous job putting the document together. I wanted to speak to one other point, which is they're basically the Massachusetts river and stream crossing standards in Acton bylaws for wetlands. I think it's chapter F. And those were not specifically called out. And the Wetlands Protection Act, which is 310 CMR 10, made legal the river and stream crossing standards. So they should be considered. Why is it important? Because most of the culverts were built a long time ago before these standards existed. And if you're going to replace them, they need to come up to the modern day standards. And these standards take into account basically wildlife passage, both aquatic wildlife and terrestrial wildlife. So I guess I just wanted to point that out. There's also two different standards in the stream crossing standards. For new stuff, it's kind of this optimal standard. And for existing stuff, you might not be able to meet the optimal standard. So there's verbiage that says most practicable, and it gives steps to outline how to accomplish that. Also, the Acton Conservation Commission is, on paper, responsible for reviewing some permits that come in and fall under these rules. And just a little bit, so culverts can block wildlife passage and are critical to flood resilience. Properly designed crossings both reduce wildlife vehicle conflicts and improve our capacity to handle extreme storm events without shifting flood risk downstream. And then just one last comment. I also, just in reviewing everything, these fall within the town of Acton, and there are, as you mentioned, there's private property, there's state property and federal property. I don't think there's too much federal property in Acton. But basically, I want to encourage a holistic approach when we're looking at replacing culverts in the future to work with adjacent municipalities and the state and federal entities. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kim Castens, 294 Pope Road, speaking just for myself and not on behalf of any organization. I also join everybody in just being so impressed with what RAC was able to pull together. The level of detail and thoughtfulness that went into this report is awesome. I just have two thoughts about things to potentially take into account moving forward as you start thinking about how to spend money and how to organize the management structure. The first has to do with the Conservation Commission. So the first line of defense when it comes to flooding is wetlands. And the people in our town government who are the experts on wetlands are the Conservation Commission. And yet they haven't been a part of the stormwater planning process that I have noticed so far. Both the Massachusetts wetlands law and the town bylaw state flood control as one of the interests that are supposed to be protected with respect to wetlands. So when the management structure is set up and when expertise is sought, I would encourage bringing Conservation Commission and the conservation officer into the process more so than there's been an opportunity to do so far. And the second thing to keep in mind, there's so many things to keep in mind, and RAC has already dealt with so many, but another thing to keep in mind, most of the attention, as far as I've been able to see, has been paid to stormwater quantity. In other words, how much water is going to be delivered under conditions of climate change, and how will we handle that, and are the culverts good enough, and so forth. But stormwater management also has to do with water quality. And in particular, our waters in Acton are impaired with respect to phosphate, which contributes to eutrophication of ponds and streams, and also with respect to road salt. And so getting water quality into the planning process as well as water quantity is yet another thing that I think is worth taking into account going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Peterson, 6 Jackson Drive. I do love a good report, and the RAC report is in fact an excellent report, so thank you for all that, because it's helpful not only in the moment, but it's a document that people obviously can go back to over time. Having said that, the select board has unanimously said that the general fund is not a reliable source of funding for stormwater. I would turn that statement around a little bit and say that treatment of stormwater concerns does not reach the value proposition that select board would have in order to dedicate $1 million out of the general fund on a regular basis. And the reason that that's important is a question of, how do we value this investment in the stormwater infrastructure and make sure that it's aligned with other investments that we make in the town. Because in the end, of course, if we create a stormwater utility, that additional fee will be borne by the town. It will increase the cost of living in Acton. Since that's true, obviously we would like to find a way to make sure that that cost is aligned with other costs of living in town. So one of the things that I would encourage the select board to do in the construction of a stormwater utility is to think carefully about how you would manage decisions to change fee rates over time so that they're aligned with the value proposition for other services that this town is trying to provide. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be very brief because Alyssa mentioned that there'd be a work group. Scott Sullivan, standing as Chair of Acton Finance Committee. This has been discussed in several recent Finance Committee meetings, and just wanted to just state what the general discussion point has been around the funding for this. And I'm not saying this is the Finance Committee opinion. I'm just stating that we haven't voted on it. We haven't had any official opinions on it, but a theme that has come up is that there is several people on the committee that are not supportive of this being an independent fee in their statements that it should be coming out of the general fund. So that's just factually what's been discussed. Looking forward to working group and committees and seeing where where the discussion takes us. And just as my own personal thought, if we could maybe come up with, as a town, a suggestion for what's a material survey, how many people are in a survey are reasonable, because I've been to a lot of meetings, seen a lot of people discuss surveys and different numbers, and some people discount them because there's not enough. Some people, their surveys are higher and they're discounted, and lower surveys are valued more. I think that in a town of 22,000, we could come up with some number that would say if you get X number of people in the survey, it would be deemed a legitimate survey. So just as a thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room? Do you have anybody online wishing to speak? We have no one. All right. I thank you, Joe, and the entire committee. You've done a great job. We certainly appreciate your work, and we'll be calling on you in the future. Thank you. Jim.
Just a short comment after hearing from people. Just to remind us that there's sort of two parts, at least, of the requirement for maintaining these systems. One is the legal and moral requirement to keep dangerous levels of crap out of our surface water. And, there's sort of a minimum standard there that we have to reach legally. And there might be a higher standard that we would choose to reach because we have a commitment to the quality of our water. And the second one is the cost of dealing with floods, water backups from, badly maintained infrastructure, and how, when we do have this sense that, making emergency repairs is generally a lot more expensive than the, keeping up with what needs to be done. But I think those two needs might drive our system in different kinds of directions. So it's going to take some careful thought to balance out those two needs.
Thank you. David.
Yes, Mr. Chair, is there a plan for the next steps? Are we bringing it back to the board for discussion? How are we moving forward?
Well, I could bounce it to the vice chair, who's been the liaison to this committee.
So I have attended almost every RAC meeting for the past year, and even despite that, I am not prepared to make a recommendation. So I think that what we should do as a board is spend some more time perseverating, maybe, reviewing the document some more on our own, and then coming back to a discussion again here as a board before we provide any direction or take a vote. We might also come up with questions for staff, and Evan comes to the town of Acton with a background specifically in establishing stormwater utility and stormwater management. So I think our staff can provide us with a lot of guidance on that.
Thank you. Yeah, I would, if we have any hope of bringing this to town meeting in the spring, I think we need to move ahead with it quickly, and even if we don't plan on getting it approved in May, we should still move ahead with it. So I would want to bring this thing back probably in January. I'm thinking probably the second meeting in January. By that time, everybody will have had a chance to read through the report, and keeping in mind that we're going to be right in the heart of budget season at that point as well. So we've got a lot on our plate, but I think that's probably a good timeline. If I could ask the manager's office to kind of put a teaser in the future agendas. And also, I think at least some of us here would probably benefit from having a printed copy of the report rather than burn up our own printers at home doing the 90-page report, which is excellent, but it eats a lot of ink. Does that answer your question, David?
Yes, thank you.
Great, thank you. And once again, thank you to RAC. And in 2 minutes, we're going to open our next hearing. So, in the interest of saving time, I'm going to try to jump ahead and go through the consent items. The item 16, approved meeting minutes from December 1st, 2025. Item 17, approved signing conservation restriction for 4 Piper Lane, 6 Piper Lane, 4 Piper Lane rear, and right-of-way over 90 School Street. Number 18, appoint Kayla Sauer as a Town of Acton representative to Metropolitan Area Planning Council, MAPC, and Nate Ryan as an associate. Number 19, accept donations totaling $750 towards the Serve Food Gift account from Acton Women's Club, $550, David Martin, $200.
I'd like to hold that.
Item 20, accept donations totaling $3,600 in gift cards towards seasonal holiday assistance from St. Vincent's de Paul, $1,000, Acton Lions Club, $2,500, Kathleen Surdan, $100. Item 21, accept a donation of $1,000 from Digital Credit Union toward the police gift account number 3195 to provide community programs at the discretion of the police chief. Number 22, accept a donation of $33.33 from Matthew Krieger as surplus from Eagle Scout Project fundraiser to be deposited in the Conservation Division Scout gift account number 3146550.
Move to approve consent items 16, 17, and 20 through 22 inclusive.
Second.
All in favor of accepting those items, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, to our holes. Jim?
I just had questions. I don't have a concern about this, but I was confused about the difference between, I think, David, you are now our liaison to MAPC, and in the past, we've had like Lauren Rosenzweig and Franny Osman as select board members who were actually appointed as representatives to the MAPC. And I wondered, perhaps David, since you go to some of these meetings, if you could articulate the difference between, what a formal representative does there and what a liaison does there.
Sure, there are two things, and perhaps manager or assistant manager can add any here, but my liaison role is mostly to our local subregion, which has an acronym MAGIC, which is the best acronym of all the subregions. I do attend some MAPC functions as a whole, whereas this appointment is representative to the whole of MAPC from the town of Acton.
Are there any, I don't, what do these representatives do? What sort of things are they voting on or discussing or?
I think I see it more as a communications role and understanding what's happening at that regional entity and reporting back and communicating internally. They're the ones who'll tell us there's a technical assistance grant coming, make sure we have a good shot at it, make sure you apply, things like that. So I don't know that they do too much voting. I think it's more just our representative from a staff standpoint. I think the board members would be more of a political standpoint when there is a political sort of advocacy thing that MAPC is doing. I think that's one difference.
Well, thanks. And I look forward to, continuing to get, reports from Kayla about, important things that are coming down the pike from MAPC. I'd look forward to that.
Yes, Melissa.
Jim, I will just share that when I was part of the Habitat for All working group, Kristen often would share information about what was going on with regional planning and what other towns are doing and working on. So I think that one really critical piece of it for staff is an awareness of the landscape with planning, and I think that helps with, finding direction for the town of Acton or inspiration or, sounding board and other planners in other communities.
That makes a lot of sense to me, thanks. I mean, as we have increasingly professionalized our planning operations, it does seem critical that you have a specialist in there to really, have that kind of communication with other planning entities. So thanks. I'd happily move that we approve. This is number 18 on the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor of approving 18 on the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Okay, the second hold, David.
I just wanted to abstain from this item, Mr. Chair.
I will also abstain since I'm on the board of the Acton Women's Club.
Very good. Well,
I move to approve 19 to accept donations totaling $750 towards the Serve Food gift account from Acton Women's Club, $550. David Martin, $200.
Second?
moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 2. Thank you very much. All right, now we will go to our hearing. The Acton Select Board will hold a public hearing on Monday, December 15th, 2025 at 7:10 PM at Acton Town Hall, room 204, 472 Main Street, and remotely by video conference and call-in on the proposed amendment to the existing traffic rules and orders by adding the following new stop sign location: River Street at Chadwick. Use the link actonma.gov/meeting/SB to join the meeting, or from telephone dial 646-876-9923 and enter webinar ID number 503-918-785. Telephone users may dial *9 to request to speak after joining the meeting. Computer and app users may use the raise hand feature to request to speak. Mr. Manager.
Thank you. This is an item that Evan White, our town engineer, assistant DPW director, will be presenting and taking any questions from you or the public.
Thanks, John. So this came to my attention shortly after I started with the town. A resident had been reaching out to me regarding the conditions of the intersection. We recently changed one section, the westbound section from the intersection of River Street to a one-way. And residents had brought up concerns about traffic volume and speeding and other such things. So I ended up meeting the resident in question, took a look at his driveway. He's actually in the rounding of the intersection, so that's the radius of curve coming from westbound on River Street onto Chadwick. And because of the one-way conversion, we're now forcing all the traffic to go up Chadwick from that direction. The larger turning radius of the road there is allowing vehicles to kind of hit that turn without slowing down much. And, currently we're having consultant design complete streets, traffic calming measures for this section for this intersection and River Street on a larger scale. To get people to slow down and things like that. So they included in that, currently it's in a 25% design, they're working on the 75% design, and they included a stop sign there on the westbound approach from River Street onto Chadwick. And considering that we've already converted a section of River Street into one-way, we're forcing traffic up there, and the gentleman's driveway location, I felt it was necessary to recommend the stop sign. Now have you folks vote on it.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Alyssa?
Thank you, Evan. I have a couple of questions. I thought that we already were at 75% design, because I thought that, Tom, you gave us a report, an update a couple meetings ago, but that's not completed yet?
No,
No,
it's not,
okay.
not completed.
So I guess, since it's not complete, I would feel more comfortable waiting until we get to that point, just to make sure that there aren't any changes to the design. Because I know that at the 25% design, there was a public forum held, they got a lot of feedback, and oftentimes what comes back is the more completed design has alterations. But do you know if that stop sign is still there in the 75% progression?
As far as I'm aware, it is. It's part of that, the 75% design now.
Okay.
Like you said, that could change once the final design is done. If they come up with, some justification for not having it there or something of that nature, it could be removed.
All right. So my second question is, I'm a little embarrassed to be asking this because I've been driving for almost 40 years, but I would not know how to navigate this intersection if I'm coming eastbound on River Street from School Street or from one of the houses that is now, needing to go one way eastbound. And I want to turn left onto Chadwick. Do I have the right of way after a stop sign is installed for the traffic that is traveling westbound on River Street? Because right now, without a stop sign, I have to yield to that traffic, which is not going to come past me because they have to take a right-hand turn because the rest of River Street is one way. I don't know who has the right of way if we install a stop sign right there.
So in the current situation, you would have to yield to that person without the stop sign as they're coming. After they complete the stop, if you're not at the intersection yet and they're taking their turn, you still have to yield to them, but they are required to stop, so you can go take your left if they're at the stop sign.
So if they're stopped, or even approaching the stop sign, I have the right of way to turn in front of them
Yes.
after a stop sign is installed. Okay. All right, that answers my questions, but I guess I'd like to speak from the experience of traveling through this intersection, and I don't live there, but I live one street over on School Street, so I'm going through this intersection a few times a week. In the summer, I was going through 8 times a day because I was pet sitting. I have not noticed significant increase in the traffic that's being funneled on Chadwick. And I believe they did an analysis of how many cars would be added to Chadwick by making that section one-way. And I don't remember it being significant or more than the day-to-day fluctuation in traffic numbers. I also have not noticed vehicles traveling too fast despite the fact that it's not a squared intersection. So, with the caveat that I don't live there, and I'm not traveling multiple times a day for the most part, that's my experience has been that it's not as much, there's not a lot of conflict there. I don't see an increase in the danger. And I guess I'm a little concerned about jumping ahead with one element of the project before we've got the complete design and the public forum and the public input to do all of the other things. I would not want to cause any hiccups there.
Fran?
I'm going to disagree with Alyssa. I wanted to ask if this gentleman who's been coming to our meetings is the driver, is he the neighbor who is?
Derek Pinto? Yeah.
So I would be okay with having a stop sign installed, and if it has to be removed, then so be it. I feel like I don't live in the area. I do travel this road a ton, and I feel like traffic on Chadwick has increased. It'll be interesting to have to stop there now, but I think it's a good deterrent for speeders barreling around the corner.
Thank you. Jim?
Just very happy to have a town engineer and to have a recommendation from a town engineer, and so I'm inclined to go with it. As you were saying, Fran, the work there is, putting a post in with a stop sign on it and painting a little bar. So if that has to be undone after we get to the 100% design, not a big cost. We won't be wasting a lot of money. I mean, I can imagine in a final design that we address the angle between the streets, we address the location, maybe even of the driveway. There could be a lot of other elements that might make this intersection even safer, but a stop sign does seem like a reasonable first step.
David?
Thank you. Alyssa pointed out that she hasn't seen increased traffic on Chadwick. I agree with that. I also live in South
I
Acton.
just want to say, since 2 people have misquoted me, I said I haven't seen a significant increase in traffic. That's all.
Okay.
Thanks.
There's certainly no queues of cars or anything on Chadwick. And I go through this intersection with some frequency as well. However, I think that I'm sympathetic towards the gentleman with his driveway immediately on the right side of this picture. When backing out, he would not be able to see down River Street if a car was coming. I'm sympathetic towards that, and where he feels uncomfortable and that, and I don't think it really hurts anybody by having this stop sign here. So you slow down to 0 instead of, instead of 10, I don't see that that's a huge deal. I was wondering, Evan, if it made sense to have an additional sign here that says oncoming traffic does not stop. Because just to clarify the situation that Alyssa brought up, if I'm quoting you right, who has to yield, the oncoming traffic does not yield. So I think it might be important to tell the person, because you see all those signs, the do not enter and the wrong way signs, you might reasonably expect that behind one of those was a stop sign, but there's not. And so I've seen other intersections in the Commonwealth that say oncoming traffic does not stop.
Thank you. Yeah, from my point of view, I don't see a downside to putting the stop sign there. The design of the driveway coming out right into the rounding of the intersection is really poor, and it's probably not anything that you could do now, but when the house was built, and this, obviously when the streets were put in, it was a much calmer time. So I don't see any objection to it. I do notice that we've got a few folks online that would like to speak.
Kendra Wilson.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. So as someone who lives on River Street, and you can see our house in the photo there, there has been an increase of traffic on Chadwick. It backs up when you're trying to take a left or right onto School Street. And to someone's point, I'm not sure who just said this, but when you're coming westbound on River, you don't know if there's a stop sign coming eastbound on River or not. It's very confusing. There's multiple signs. They're all red. So we're absolutely in favor of having a stop sign heading both east and westbound on River. That way it's a three-way stop. It can only increase the safety. And if you go back to the first photo you were showing, the placement of the white strip, when you're coming down Chadwick heading south, so not where the arrow is pointing at the white strip, but kind of where your box is. It's further back, but people don't stop there. They roll right into River because the barriers, and I've had people who they don't stop. Like, I purposely stop before I make a left turn onto Chadwick because I don't know if they're going to stop or not. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So the placement of that white strip is confusing because it seems like they can't really see when they come down that way. And so they creep out to where the wrong way and the do not enter sign are, and kind of slow roll it right onto River from there, making a left turn. So strongly advocate for 3 stop signs. We have 1. We need 2 more to make this more crystal clear for safety in the interim while, the full design is done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Manish Kumar.
Hi, thank you. I'm one of those blue houses just behind the wrong way sign, and Kendra's neighbor, by the way. And I agree with her that I don't think the traffic has increased significantly, and there I would agree with everyone, but it has caused a lot of confusion where you will hear a lot of honks because what Kendra was saying was when people don't stop, when they keep on moving. And when the school buses come, they stop literally in this square, in the middle of this section. So even for the safety of the kids, there are a lot of kids in the neighborhood. There are at least 7 to 8 kids who go on a bus on this particular junction. I think even I agree with Kendra that maybe a 3-way stop sign is a better way for safety of this intersection. Otherwise, you can see honks happening all the time. I know that occasionally when you drive by here, you won't notice that, but since I live literally at that corner, I can tell you it happens all the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Heather Sheehan? Heather Sheehan, you just have to unmute. Call-in user 1. Call-in user 1, you've been unmuted.
Oh, yes, thank you so much. It's Tara from here in Mass Ave. I don't live right there, but I do go by there. And I just want to remind people that this is the cost of growth. Traffic analysis for a developer only examines the impact of their one house, 4 houses. I've never seen a developer analysis say that there's an impact, but the cumulative impact over the years is high. And it might be time to just put stop signs everywhere. I love 4-way stop signs. It helps reduce the number of people going through an intersection. I thank you for reminding us that it's a pretty low cost to put it there. It would reduce the risk at a small cost. I think I heard 100% agreement by the residents to put at least one more stop sign. And to me, doing what the neighbors want is super important. I see no reason not to do it. I urge you to vote yes to approve the request. Thank you.
Thank you. You have anyone else?
Yes, Stephanie Krantz?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So I am actually, my home, if you pan out of that current photo, my driveway actually comes right into that intersection. I'm right there. I'm on the left. And I mean, from our point of view in living here and seeing this happen, like Manish said, the constant horns honking, I'm actually surprised that there have not been more accidents. I don't know how or why, but there are close calls on the regular. We still have people going the wrong way up the one-way street. So I think from our point of view of looking at this and the confusion in this intersection, the reason we are asking for the 3-way stop, not just this additional stop sign, is because it's going to make people from every direction stop for a minute. Nobody coming down Chadwick, like Kendra was saying, you have to come so far down into the intersection that what it's doing is it's forcing people out into it already, and they just go. It makes it hard for me to pull out of my driveway. It makes it hard for the people that are coming down the one-way eastbound on River to know what's happening. It just feel that a 3-way makes that intersection, just everyone just has to stop for a minute, if that can be understood. I know this is not part of the 100% design, but I feel like a lot of the things in the town right now are all at around 25, 30, 40% design. We need something to happen today, right now, to help with all of these kids getting off of the buses and our own neighborhood driving on these roads. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Well, our Public Works Director's up.
Okay. I'm Elisa Ruggiero, and I live at 6 Chadwick Street. And I am definitely in support of this stop sign. I think it's absolutely necessary. And from my perspective, because I live right on Chadwick, it's necessary to help control traffic at that intersection, but also it may slow people down a little bit when they go up Chadwick. Chadwick is a very short street, but people still manage to go flying up the hill. And because I live there, I drive in that area, but I also walk in that area daily. And I mean, I practically have to jump in the bushes sometimes to get away from the cars that are flying up Chadwick, because there are no sidewalks there, because it's a narrow little street. And I'll also add one other thing, that it has been a significant increase in traffic, particularly traffic backup on Chadwick at the stop sign, is School Street and Chadwick. I have trouble getting on my driveway sometimes because there's a lineup of cars waiting to make that turn. It's been quite a difference since we went one way on River. So that's it. I am definitely in support of the stop sign, and the three-way is a good idea too, but just that one stop sign for now would be a help. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Julie Williams. I live at 14 Chadwick. So I am one house beyond this driveway that we're talking about on the edge here. So I would agree that there has been a significant increase in the traffic going up and down Chadwick Street, and the speed of the traffic going up and down, well, down in particular River. What I experience and have experienced multiple times is coming up to on River to turn right onto Chadwick. Now I'm not the driveway right there, I'm the next driveway. I take the turn and there's somebody on my bumper. I've been honked at, I've almost been hit, rear-ended, because I've got my blinker on, I'm turning into my driveway, but they're moving so fast that they don't see it. And without sidewalks on that street, it's just too dangerous. And so I would be in favor of a three-way stop sign. I think the third stop sign is really critical because it will slow down the traffic in all directions and allow for better viewing as well. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. I know the Public Works Director has certainly taken notes of all of the comments from the neighbors. We do have one piece of business in front of us right now. Evan, if you'd like to add any other comments at this point?
Sure. So about the three-way stop sign, the 25% design at this point does not include a stop sign on the one-way section of River Street. I did go back to our consultants and ask them to re-examine that based off of feedback I'm getting back from people. So they are in process of looking at that as part of the 75% design. So that may come with that 75% design as well.
Thank you. So as far as the piece of business at hand, I would entertain a motion to approve a stop sign. David?
Can I just ask one question first? Will you come back to us with the results from the consultants as to whether they recommend a third stop sign?
Yeah, I can absolutely do that.
Thank you. I had it open a minute ago. I move that we approve the amendment, sorry. I move that we approve the amendment to establish a stop sign control on River Street westbound at Chadwick and authorize the DPW to install associated signs and paving markers per MUTCD.
Mr. Chair, sorry, you have to close the hearing first.
Good.
I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions?
Should I read that motion again?
Yes, please.
I move that we approve the amendment as written, to establish a stop sign control on River Street westbound at Chadwick, and authorize the DPW to install associated signs and pavement markings per MUTCD.
Can I just ask a quick question? Do we want to say something about coming back with an additional, or this is just for this stop sign we're talking about?
I think at this point, we just need to get this approved.
Great.
And certainly, the DPW director and the town manager has certainly heard our sentiments on the rest. Can I get a second on David's motion? Moved and seconded to install a stop sign at River Street at Chadwick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Approved. Thank you. So, next, let's get back to item 4, approve wayfinding signage and locations on Main Street and Quarry Road.
Yes, speaking of signs, the Economic Development Office and Tom, our assistant town manager, we're working on a proposal to add some wayfinding in North Acton, particularly near Narrow Park. It's a place that people know, but there isn't really much signage to help people find it. And in the process, there's also an opportunity to provide some economic development type signage for, there's a museum on Granite Road that, the YV Museum, doesn't have a sign, any kind of wayfinding. So that, creating the sign was the easy part. Figuring out where to put them has been a little bit more challenging. And after several back and forths, these are the locations that we have in mind. This is not survey, those dots are not survey accurate, but that's generally where we want to put them. And I think before we go through the trouble of figuring out exactly how they would fit, we wanted to make sure that the board is comfortable with this, these new signs appearing on our roadways. And we do expect some back and forth with residents that may have new signs near their house, but we think that if the goal is to help people find those destinations, these sign locations make sense. So, and Evan's here to help. I think he looked at this a little bit, and we can answer any questions you have about where this may go or how this may go. And if you support that, if you support these signs in these general locations, we move forward and get them in. I believe we already have them, don't we? Or if not, they're on order. We just need to get them in.
Thank you. Questions from my colleagues? Jim?
I have no concerns about locations 2, 3, and 4. I wanted to ask about number 1, and I couldn't quite tell from the rendering and the map which directions of traffic will see that sign. Is that for people who are coming up Main Street and then stopping for a while, or is it more for people on Great Road? I'm just a little confused about where it is and who gets to see it.
Sure, thank you for the question. So that will be visible for people traveling south on Main Street who would be at the Veterans Field intersection. And that sign would be on the right-hand side of Veterans Field, guiding people up Great Road. I'm sorry, Great Road, coming up Main Street, and people would be able to continue on up to Nara. It would be north on Main Street.
Okay, so we lose some of the southbound people, but you can't get everyone. Okay, yep.
Well, they would have already driven past the signage that we're putting up on the north part of 27.
I mean Great Road. So we'll get half the Great Road traffic will see the sign, the other half won't. But that's probably okay.
David?
So I like where these are placed. I think they're definitely assist people. I did want to clarify that number 1 is where there's a variable message board now. Is that right? And will the variable message board remain, or will this sign interfere with that?
What, sorry. Yeah, so we're also pursuing an electronic message board for their
A permanent one?
permanent one, because that trailer's been there for 4 years. I think it works as a location, more or less. So, yeah, this would have to be, this is the opposite side of the intersection, isn't it?
From my
Yeah.
understanding, maybe,
Yeah, no, if we do get that sign board, this one sign would have to be adjusted. We wouldn't have them next to each other necessarily.
or you'd do something so they were both visible.
Well, to further complicate this intersection, the state is redesigning it. So there's a lot that can change, but I think if we got these signs in the ground in the meantime, it would help people find those locations.
Thank you.
Alyssa?
So the location number 1 is a place where there are often signs that are for different events, both sandwich boards and the corrugated plastic signs that are in the H frames. Is this a location that is controlled by the zoning enforcement officer when folks go to request permission? And if so, or are they putting signs there without permission? But if it is a location, would we remove this location so there would be less clutter from community signs with the placement of this wayfinding sign?
We can look into that. I'm not sure.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Looking for a motion?
I move that we approve the wayfinding signage as outlined in the packet.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I'll abstain. I still have concerns about location 1.
Very good. All right, so the vote is going to be 4 yes, 1 no, or 1 abstention.
I'll abstain.
Thank you. Alyssa?
So to Jim's question about the folks who are traveling on Great Road missing the sign, I'm wondering whether or not folks would be in favor of having a sign at the intersection of Great Road and Harris Street, because that's, if you're in that part of town, that's how you would get to both NARA, if you're not walking, and the YV Museum. Because that sign location number 1, since it's on the east side of the intersection of 2A and 27, folks that are traveling on Great Road, they may be able to see it depending on the angle, but it looks like it's facing for the highest visibility to be seen by drivers on 27 northbound. So just, I don't know what the cost of these signs is, but maybe a 5th location at the intersection of Harris and 2A 119.
David?
So I think this position is almost the same as the variable message board, which is definitely visible from 2A eastbound and 27 northbound. Maybe we can see how it goes and then ask the manager to add another one if there, there isn't good visibility.
Okay.
Can I ask one? I know we already
Yes,
had
Fran.
them. So are all of those things on each sign, like NARA and YV, Or is YV closer to, like, is it location 2 or closer 3, closer to Quarry?
Yes, so all three signs will have Nara Park, Miracle Field, and YV Museum. It's just when you get closer to Nara, it'll have a separation where you'll see the amphitheater, the bathhouse, Miracle Field, and YV Museum.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think we got that approved. I think the manager understands that surprising there's interest for more signage rather than less. And of course, Harris Street is another intersection the state's going to redesign, so I'm sure you'll be back. Item 6, discuss potential change to July 4th fireworks celebration. I'll lead off because, oh, pardon me. Item 5, approve grant of pole relocations on Powder Mill Road.
This is related to the work, I believe, all the work related to the new apartments in Powder Mill. They're moving utilities around, and the board is required to sign off on those, and that's what this request is. If there's more details needed, we can provide them.
Okay, questions? Is there a specific motion that we should read?
Yeah, we're bringing up the memo with the specific that was in the packet.
Okay,
13 polls, yeah.
would someone care to read that?
Okay. I move to approve the relocation of 13 poles along Powder Mill Road as identified in the petition from Eversource Energy and Verizon.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the relocation of 13 poles. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Abstentions? Negative. Okay, thank you. Item 6, discuss potential change to July 4th fireworks celebrations. This came up in a discussion I had with the manager a week or so ago, considering that the board had pretty clearly indicated not a lot of interest in providing fireworks for July 4th, 2027. And, you know, the issues that all of us raised about, you know, impact on the environment, impact on, you know, sensitive communities, the cost of the fireworks, and certainly the, not only the fireworks bear cost, but also the cost of all of the town support that's provided with bringing in basically every firefighter and every police officer that we have available, plus lots of DPW and Parks and Rec folks. So the question is, if that's the position that we're taking about no fireworks in July of '27, how do we feel about fireworks in July of '26? I was not available, if this was even an option, to cancel those. I'm not sure how I feel, but we wanted to bring it to the board and get some feedback. My understanding is that there is sufficient time to make some changes for what's been conceptualized in the past. So I'll open up to my colleagues. Jim.
I'm all in favor of not having fireworks in '27 and beyond. I'm much more mixed about '26. You know, it does have that 250th year after the Declaration, and I think that that's, and we have already reserved the money for it. I think it's fine to do it one more time, and to know that it's, you know, the one more time. I think it gives it, you know, a special meaning. Yeah.
Thank you. Other comments?
I just agree with Jim.
Thank you. I mean, one of these rare opportunities where I agree with both Jim and David on something. I think from the same point of view as Jim expressed very ably, it is the 250th of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And I think it does provide sort of a down ramp, let folks know that this is it. And the money has been approved at town meeting, so I'm okay with one more series of explosions. Alyssa?
I think it's very important that if we are committing, well, I don't know, we can't really commit a future board, although the town manager controls the budget, so, well, town meeting ultimately controls the budget, but the budget that's brought forth for us to provide input on could just not have fireworks included in the future. So not that we're really directing future boards how to allocate money in the budget. But if the sense of the town staff and the current board is that this is the last, because it's significant anniversary, that should be very clearly outlined in the town meeting warrant, during the town meeting presentation. I also was mixed about the fact that this is the 250th of July 4th, 1776. But thinking about all of the town staff who have to work on that day, that night, that means that they are not able to spend that time, that holiday with their families. And I know that certain professions, like medical professions and public safety professions, do work a lot of holidays, but most of the time there's a sharing of that. So, you know, if you're a nurse and you have to work on Thanksgiving this year, you probably have Christmas off, and then, you know, you have Thanksgiving off the following year, but there's a rotation. But if it requires 100% of our departments, then they're, you know, if they've been here 10, 20, 30 years, that's basically decades of not being able to spend the 4th of July with their own families. But since the three of you are inclined to do one more time, I'm willing to go along with that.
Fran?
I would be fine with doing away with them this year. I think that we can find other ways. I know that we're having there's a party planned, perhaps, for the 250th in town. We can concentrate on that. This gives us maybe a year longer to plan for a festival of some sort, or a kind of a town community gathering. But I wouldn't mind doing it sooner. I think we don't need fireworks for the Declaration of Independence. I mean, we know what happened here. So that's my take.
Alyssa?
I imagine that we're going to have a concert, but can we, you know, maybe play the 1812 overture without fireworks? and just have a big community party, and maybe there will be fewer people in attendance because there's no fireworks draw.
I'll have to ask Tom if he can find a garage band that can do the 1812 overtures, in keeping with past practices. David?
So we still have the money appropriately, we could pay part of, use part of that to pay for a band if this is what we chose to do. So I just wanted to ask, maybe it's different as Alyssa was saying, that have it, during the day or early or evening, but if we just had a concert there, does that take appreciably less staff? Suppose we had 5,000 people there instead of 15,000. How many public safety staff do we need and that kind of thing? So I just want to be clear why we're doing this. I mean, there's the issue of blowing up stuff, which may not be good, and there's the issue of, being able to have our staff spend time with their families. If the second one is our priority, then I want to make sure that what we do allows them to have their time off.
Thoughts from the manager?
Sure, I think from what I've seen, and I've been to a few, I think the draw is the fireworks. I think the band that we've had the last few years is pretty good, really good. The Cars cover band a couple of years ago was really good, and was it 36 Red last year? They're good. But I think there's good bands playing all over the place. I think people come here for the fireworks. And if it weren't fireworks, I don't think we'd get 5,000 people. I think we'd get closer to 1,000 at the most. Which, if that were the case, well, I don't know, it's hard to guess what we'd get, but I really think that that's the draw. We had a huge Taylor Swift concert last year that had less than 1,000 people, right? So, the staffing needs for a concert, even a huge concert, would be probably less, but would still be significant if we were doing a big event.
Alyssa?
Do we have a date that we would aim to have a 4th of July event, whether it's only a concert and food truck festival, or fireworks? Because one other issue that hasn't been mentioned yet is the public safety aspect. So having Acton hold a fireworks event on the same day as other communities, Boston, there's less capacity for mutual aid should anything happen that requires assistance from other communities. It's like why we don't have the March to the Bridge on the same day as the Boston Marathon, because you don't want to spread public safety staff too thin across the region. So, if we were going to have a 4th of July event with fireworks, is it a possibility to have it on a date other than the 4th of July? Maybe the 5th or the 6th. I don't even know what day of the week it is.
It's a Saturday. 4th of July is a Saturday, so we could conceivably have it on Sunday, or especially if it was a concert, right? And it wasn't going at 10 o'clock at night, or Friday.
I think, my recollection is that there was a conscious effort to try to move the fireworks so it's actually on the 4th of July, for whatever reason. And I certainly appreciate your issues about, mutual aid in case of major disasters up there, but there was a conscious effort made, and I think for a couple of years, we as I recall, we couldn't get the contractor, so it ended up being some other date than the 4th of July, and people were disappointed with that. Yes.
I would like to move that we not use the appropriated funding to pay for fireworks and instead hold a concert and potentially a community festival on the 4th of July, 2026.
Second,
Would anybody care to second that?
I'd seconded it.
Fran, thank you.
Can I make a comment?
Discussion, David.
Yes, so again, if part of the reason is to allow staff to spend 4th of July with their families, and if we're not having fireworks, perhaps we should have this on Sunday. And then everybody can have their 4th of July barbecues with their cousins. And then some reduced staff, because less than fireworks, could come and help us with a concert on Sunday. Just an idea, or Friday. Again, I'm trying to figure out what, I mean, even for myself, I'm not putting this on anybody else, what the priority is, you know, what our strongest motivations are.
I love a Friday night concert.
I think that the intent, and maybe I should word it, I should adjust the wording, the intent is to have July 4th celebration not tied to a particular date.
So I think.
Should I change it
so
to
I think-
Independence Day celebration?
So I think you said on July 4th. Can I say we take a friendly amendment for July 4th weekend?
Yes. And it might make more sense for a concert to be on Friday night, since that's what the day of the week is for other concerts during the summer concert series.
Second.
All right, the friendly amendment's been seconded. Jim?
I had a question about the implications of this vote. I was wondering where we were at with the process of vendor contracts with fireworks and all that.
Great question. So we signed a contract last year for the 2025 fireworks. We did not sign one for 26. We do not have a contract officially executed for fireworks. Alyssa, you had asked before about the planning for concerts and everything, and vendors and the entertainers, and we're beginning that process this week. So this guidance is extremely helpful as we start to look to who's going to play, whether it's on the 3rd, 4th, or whatever date. But there are no contracts in hand at this point.
Just as, from the point of view of being the representative from the Select Board to the Acton 250 Committee, when you put the agenda together for the event, maybe we should be able to include a public reading of the Declaration of Independence. I'm sure we could get enough 250 committee members who'd each take a paragraph or two. I think it might be significant, especially in this particular year. And, you know, just to clarify sort of my concerns in the past that I've expressed on a number of occasions is that I have a concern about creating a huge regional event. My sense is from attending a number of these that there are fairly small numbers of actual Acton residents and taxpayers that attend the fireworks. It tends to be more of a draw, and I'm not sure what kind of benefit that brings to us. It's not like we've got a lot of, you know, restaurants that benefit from it. You know, you have something big like this in downtown Boston, obviously all the restaurateurs and the hotels do really well, but I'm not sure that we're getting much of a payback for the investment and the inconvenience of doing that. So that's kind of my motivator as far as wanting to get away from the fireworks. I do agree with the manager. I'm sure that if we eliminate the fireworks, probably, you know, 2/3 of the crowd goes away. And it's something that we might be able to deal with a little more effectively. David, I think I saw you.
Yeah, I was just going to volunteer to read all the stuff, the bad stuff that King George did.
And you'd be very popular. Alyssa.
I'm sure that it will come up in any discussion in the future about reading the Declaration of Independence, but I would object to the objectionable phrases in that document regarding Indigenous peoples.
Noted. That's what you say. History is history. Okay, Jim?
I'm beginning to warm to this idea. I wonder, Dean, since you mentioned, the 250 committee, if they would be willing to, be deeply involved in the design of such an event. I mean, it's not going to, there's some part about the event that would need to have some historical roots and acknowledgements in it. And it seems like your committee's been the group that's been, thinking about how to do that. So I know you're not the committee, but you've been with the committee for quite a while. You know a lot of them. Do you think they'd be willing to help, design some components of an event like this?
Well, our next Acton 250 committee meeting is actually Monday, January 5th. And one of the subjects that we were going to discuss was sort of a capstone event. And I will bring this to them. So I think we've gone full circle. So guidance, I think Alyssa had a motion and then it was amended, and maybe you can recap what your motion was that I think captures our sentiments.
Did you get my motion, Lisa? Lisa got it.
Okay. All in favor of that motion, whatever it was, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Do you want me to say it again?
Please.
Oh,
It'd be helpful to have a
gosh.
little more
All right,
direction.
so, thank you, Lisa. Yes, no? I don't remember what I said. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So live, I have Ms. Nickel moves, seconded by Ms. Arsenault, to not use appropriated funding to pay for fireworks, instead hold a concert and community festival on July 4th, 2026, and amended by Mr. Martin, seconded by Mr. Snyder Grant, to include holding on a Friday or Sunday and approve 5-0.
So moved.
Second, again.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much. It's surprisingly more complicated than I thought. Item 8, authorize town manager to sign Habitat for Humanity Local Initiative Petition, LIP, application for 416 Great Road.
This is something that I think in the past we've brought the LIP applications to the board. And if it's in the packet for your review, if you have any concerns, let us know. But the RHSO reviewed it for us, and they said it looks good.
Thank you. David?
So specifically, for zoning in this area, does zoning in this area not allow multifamily dwellings of the kind being proposed? Or, to turn the other way, why is there a need for a LIP? Because I don't object, right? But I was just wondering why there is a need for a LIP.
I think, I don't know specifically, but I'm guessing that the LIP application provides a path forward for projects like this that they're comfortable and have used in the past. And it's more streamlined than trying to navigate our local zoning, even if it is allowed.
That makes sense to me. I would like, though, I'm going to vote in favor of this, but I would like to know offline, maybe someone can tell me if there is something specific here. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor of authorizing town manager to sign Habitat for Humanity local initiative petition for 416? Okay. let's make a motion. David?
I move to authorize the town manager to sign the Habitat for Humanity local initiative petition for 416 Great Road.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? You're all set. Item 9, approve updated changes to other post-employment benefits OPEB policy.
This is a policy that we discussed. The board reviewed a first draft of this at the end of, in one of the recent meetings, and I had a chance to go to the Finance Committee and share some of the details with that group, and it's been discussed a few different ways since that time. I got feedback from the Finance Committee that has been incorporated into this most recent draft. Not the Finance Committee as a whole, but individuals that gave comments that night. And what's in the packet is what I'm recommending at this point for the change to the policy. And the basics are that there hasn't, we just started trying to developing a policy for OPEB after a long and very successful track record of putting money away into it appropriately. But now I'm looking for a little bit of flexibility with how we do it going forward because we're in pretty good standing right now. I'm proposing that we make a minimum contribution of at least $300,000 to the OPEB trust every year, and that we use not just appropriated funds like we've used in the past, but also use reserves that are available or one-time funds that become available for one reason or another, particularly if they're related to health insurance, just as a way of recognizing that we get this long-term liability and we need to find ways to cover it, and I think getting creative in doing that would serve us well. The other part of it, and this is based on Finance Committee feedback, is that initially, this year I'm not proposing that we use any money from the trust to pay for health insurance claims like we have the last two. But the policy does include the ability to do that, just in case things change. But what it says now is it says OPEB trust may be used to pay for those costs in amount, but not an amount that exceeds the amount that we put in that year without specific approval from the Select Board and the Finance Committee. I thought they would like that. And then to the extent feasible, it just says we'd put the money in at the beginning of the year so it matures. And in the event that we take it out, we would do it at the end of the year so that we'd have some benefit of putting the money away for a bit. That's really it. So the main changes from what we have now are providing that we're going to use some reserve funds to put into OPEB and not just appropriated money, and changing the target from around 600,000 to 300,000. And it's written in a way that could be, if you were to approve it tonight, we could change it to say approved on this date, and we could put it on the website to replace the one that is on the website now for the approved OPEB policy. So that's the presentation. Thank you.
I think we got told this before, but I'll ask it again because now I'm paying attention. How would this change, the range of these possible changes, impact the magic year at which we would no longer need to make any contributions to the OPEB fund? I think that's...
So we did look at that with the consultant that we used to do the actuarial analysis, and they have updated the numbers from the very high health insurance premium increases that we just saw this year, and they accounted for the fact that the net contribution the last 2 years and this proposed coming year is only 300 instead of 600. And the end year for when the OPEB liability we paid off didn't change materially. It's still in the mid-2030s.
So at some point, even before then, we'll get to an earlier tipping point where we can safely, I think if I'm doing the math in my head right, there will be a point where we will be able to pay out more than we are putting in. But I guess at that point, we can just change this policy.
Yeah, I think I want to say a little bit more, maybe to help provide some context with that. So OPEB, and maybe I should have started with this, just for the viewing audience. OPEB is other post-employment benefits, right? That's all the health insurance costs that we're paying for people that are retired. When you retire from here, the town, the organization pays 50% of your health care for the rest of your life, and your spouse. And so that amount of money, we need to make sure we have for not just the people that are already retired, but the people like us that are going to retire someday. And that's the OPEB liability, is sort of the future costs. The current other post-employment benefits, we're paying right now. We have retirees right now that we're paying right out of the operating budget for the health insurance benefits. So in some ways, we're paying as we go, instead of just putting it all away and having an issue with it. But I think once we have $13 million in the trust right now, or thereabouts, and if we continue to contribute year over year and we don't take any out, eventually whoever's in the seat, hopefully it's us, maybe it'll still be you, I don't know, in 10 years, I'm not sure what's gonna look like, but we can decide, okay, geez, we have all this money in the OPEB trust, should we continue paying for retirees as we go? Or should we use this trust now and maybe have a set amount that we use to pay for? I think that's what you're getting at. We're not there yet in terms of developing that policy, but I see that as next. We're kind of fine-tuning what we're putting in, fine-tuning what we're putting in, and as we get closer to that period of time, we can maybe start looking at, okay, maybe we go the other way and start spending it down in a way that makes sense. So, not yet, but we will.
Okay, any other questions? All right, I'm looking for a motion.
I move to approve the updated changes to the other post-employment benefits policy as outlined in the packet.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other comments? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, okay. Item 10, review town requests for FY27 community preservation grants. I bring this to you folks every year. The full, in addition to the town projects, there are a number of non-town projects. Total dollar amount of those projects that have been submitted and we're starting the review now comes to a little bit less than $2,800,000. We have a balance of about $1,800,000. So, and the town by itself has submitted a request for almost $2,200,000. So even if we were to fully approve all of the town requests, there's not enough money, and obviously we wouldn't be able to do anything for the private projects, and some of them are not really private. I mean, support for Acton Housing Authority, a lot of private nonprofit organizations that are looking for funding. So whatever guidance folks can come up with as far as strictly the town projects, I can relay that to the committee. We'll be really digging into this deeply in January, so any thoughts you might have about relative numbers, if there's any projects that you think should be paid for in some other fashion, I'm all ears. I will put together, try to recapture everything that you folks say to me, and I will relay that message to the CPC. David.
Can I just ask a question about the clock tower? The clock tower has to be designed and then constructed. Do we have a time frame for the design?
Sure. So Structures North is currently in the middle of designing the replacement for the clock tower. They've submitted to the town 25% conceptual renderings. We gave them the go-ahead. It's under a contract already, so that funding is covered. We anticipate probably, I'd say, early winter, so February, March timeframe, we'll have 100% construction docs.
Okay, so before town meeting.
Correct. The cost estimate that we did include, or the cost estimate that we used to develop the grant application came from Structures North, and we included a contingency that's appropriate for that design phase.
Thank you. So, I don't know, it's very difficult to decide among these projects. I think they're all very worthwhile. You know, I'm concerned about the clock tower. It would be difficult to shave that amount, or although possibly if this was only partially funded by the CPC and we knew it in advance, we might be able to have a small allocation in, you know, out of free cash. Again, but that depends on the balance of free cash and other things, and it will affect our total spending percentage on ALG. So it's very tough. The one thing I would say is, up until just a few years ago, the open space set aside was $500,000, and it seems to have been going up a lot. And I think especially since the town has invested, you know, quite a bit in open space purchases in the last few years, I feel that I wouldn't eliminate it, but I think that can be shaved somewhat. And I would rather see it at its historic level, which was $500,000. So that's just, you know, other members here may not agree with me, but I think it was put up, you know, I think 3 years ago, and I think you know, since then the town through other funds and everything, including in bonding through CPC, which has to be paid for, right? So that's when Dean says the amount of money that they have, that's already deducted the bond payments for a couple of different open space properties. So, you know, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars going into open space already besides whatever we put in the set aside. And so I just feel that could be shaped somewhat. The other ones are all, I think, you know, important. I don't know how to weigh them. I'm sure that the CPC will do a good job in figuring out, you know, what they think is the best value for the town.
Thank you. Alyssa?
Thanks. I'm a little confused about what you just said, David, where we have hundreds of thousands of dollars from other sources that are paying the bonds for open space acquisitions. I thought that the payment of those bonds came from the open space set aside.
Yes, I believe that that's true, but I think the balance that Dean said already had those subtracted. Well, maybe Dean can tell me, because usually before they decide on the budget, they got the total amount and they subtract out what are the bond requirements.
Oh, okay.
And so
that calculation has not been done at this point.
okay, so that's going to, the number that you said is going to go down by a couple $100,000 for, you know, I can't remember, Wright Hill may be paid off now.
Piper Lane.
Or close, but we have Piper Lane and Weatherby, and Weatherby is big, and so.
And 549 Main Street.
Yeah, so I would put as my top priority is the open space, and without reducing it. I understand that historically it was closer to $500,000, but that was when land was less expensive. And I know that the Weatherby purchase in particular brought the open space set aside down, and so I see this request. I didn't attend the open space committee meeting where they discussed the application, but I assume that this is in part aimed at building that open space set aside back up. Certainly the clock tower restoration is a high priority. I'm wondering about the NARA playground. I understand that there's a life expectancy for playgrounds. I don't know that we are there yet, at the end of life or beyond the end of life. And I'm wondering if a question that I have is whether or not this is going to be replaced with another universally accessible playground, similar to Jones Field and Gardner. And you don't have to answer that, that's just something that I wonder about. I definitely think that the West Acton Citizens Library accessibility improvements are a high priority for me and for the community. I think that those proposed improvements will go a long way in helping people get into the building and use the library more comfortably. I have a question about the historic district marker signs. Are those replacements of the existing ones?
Yes.
Yes, okay. And they are not in good shape, or we need to?
So they're either non-existent or not in good shape.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of them are missing.
Putting
So,
in ones that we need to be?
yes.
Okay, got it. And I will use one more opportunity to say that I'm of the opinion that Regional Housing Services office services are so critical and vital to our maintenance and management of our affordable housing stock that should be in the operating budget. I realize that it's a small amount, $40,000, but the CPC has been oversubscribed by $1 million or more for the last 5 or 6 years. There's a lot of competition for all of the different categories: recreation, community housing, open space, historic preservation. And as more communities across the state have signed on to CPA, the state matches less. And we don't have the skill set and the capacity among our own town staff to provide those services, which is why we need, it's a necessity. So I think that should be in the operating budget. And I know there are other communities that do have it in the operating budget rather than using CPA funds. And perhaps one more historic preservation project could be awarded funds if that was not an annual ask.
Thank you, Jim.
I think I just want to talk about the first four, the ones that are over 100,000. I think the committee will be able to go into all the details of the smaller ones. When I think about the needs that each of those line items is addressing, the Community Housing Program Fund rises right to the top for me. When I think about problems that face Acton residents, I think, the rent is too high. It's just so freaking expensive to live here. And if we can keep carving away at the edges of that with the wise use of housing funds, I think that's a great thing. In terms of open space acquisition, I think the Open Space Committee will have more details about this, but when I look at a map now, I feel like we've done a great job with the big parcels that could be saved. That there's very few left. Now we're talking, people who have oversized lots, and maybe we can save some of the back acreage. It's not these vast, 20, 30, 40 acre things that we've been able to save over the last few decades. So I'm fine with that falling. I will say, given our enthusiasm about moving away from the strangeness of fireworks as being, an expression of a previous century, and we're also moving away from the little the little the hardwired fire alarm system that we have. I am beginning to wonder about the role of a large, difficult to maintain mechanical clock tower. If we were starting fresh, if we didn't have a clock tower, would we say, you know what we should spend our next $600,000 on is putting up a gigantic clock? We would be thought of as, people who are thinking oddly and not well about the resources of the town, given that everybody's carrying around a clock in their pocket. I think for a lot less, potentially, we could have, something wonderful visual up there. LEDs, very cheap. We could have sound. We could have a large sound come out of there. Sound can be made by really small and inexpensive devices now. They don't actually need gigantic bells with, weights that swing back and forth. I know we've already committed to the design money, but if we end up thinking that we don't want to go that way, I'm very comfortable with that. Playground replacement, I don't know. When I first saw that, my thought was, hey, lots of other playgrounds in the past were done by, enthusiastic fundraising by people who really cared about that. But then we have Gardner Field, which was, is an amazing place that's drawing lots of people. And it was way too expensive to have been done with fundraising by enthusiastic neighbors. So I think we've stepped over the place where playgrounds are totally ignored and only paid for out of enthusiastic fundraising. So I think the question is exactly right about whether we can wait on that for a year or two. But I think it eventually belongs as a town expense, and the CPA is a great place for it.
Thank you. John?
Just wanted to clarify on the clock tower. The mechanics of the clock is the easy part. We could fix that right now. It's the structural components of the tower that needs serious repair and costly repair.
Fran?
I just wanted to add that being one of the categories of what CPA is designed to help is historical. And this building is the most historic. So I think it's important that be a priority, in my opinion. I'm also share your sentiment with the Community Housing Program Fund, Jim. And I agree, we have acquired a lot of open space, but let's not stop. There's farms we don't know about that are lots of acreage. Not that I want to, take over a farm, but that is a possibility. And also, I just wanted to mention on the HDC Historic District marker signs, at the time of the application, we didn't have the quote back and it jumped to 2,100, but I'm getting a second opinion. So the 10,000 became 2,100. 21,000, sorry, yeah, which is doubled. To make the signs, they have to be made. So the 10,000 turned into 21,000. Sorry, I wasn't being clear. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. David?
I was wondering if I could ask the deputy town manager, what is the condition of the playground at Nara?
Sure, thank you. The playground at Nara is pretty well aged. I believe, and I may be off by a few years, but I believe it's about 20 years old. And with playgrounds, there's kind of a combination of the amount of usage that goes with it and the age that goes with it. And the playground is heavily used by the camps that attend NARA, and that's anywhere between 125 to 150 kids daily for about a 10-week period, and then concerts and normal events. So the playground is pretty worn. One question earlier about the playground was asking if it would be replaced with the same type of focus on providing accessible play equipment for all, and that is part of the application as well, where there's a pathway that's similar to Jones, where Jones is all poured in place. This would be a pathway that's poured in place just to the play equipment. So to answer your question directly, David, it is in pretty bad shape.
And are there current safety issues? I know there are new playgrounds, we use the foam padding and things, which is the ultimate in safety. But I assume that the wood chips or whatever were at the playground are now old. Is there anything else that's broken that is a safety issue?
There's nothing that's an immediate danger. If a child played with it, they'd be hurt immediately. We've been repairing those, but we are at a point where the repairs on the play equipment is getting to the point where we're going to have to replace the equipment instead of keeping up with repairs. So it definitely has aged. Repairs have occurred multiple times over the last few years, and I would suspect when we open the playground back up in the spring, we'll have additional repairs to ensure that kids can still play. With those repairs come the decrease of usability on some of the equipments, because some of the equipment just can't be fully repaired to a safe point.
Yes, thank you. I think, the Friends of Gardner Field were, wonderful. They generated, as I recall, $80,000. I mean, it's but I think that the demographic of the people that use NARA is different. I see, people walking there from Great Road, and the adults go, it depends on the age of the children, obviously, with adults go around the park and, the kids play on the playground. It's an important playground in town, and I don't want it to, we've redone the Jones Field Playground and the Gardner Field Playground. I don't want to, not pay attention to the playground in North Acton.
Thank you. Alyssa?
At the risk of when everything's a priority, nothing's a priority, I want to echo Jim's focus on community housing, because I did not mention that, and I agree that that is a priority. And I believe that the allocations have been lower in the past few years. So it's probably time to bring that up. And in terms of the clock tower, I appreciate the town manager's clarification that it's the structural part of it and not the mechanical, but also, in terms of folks looking at our priorities when they look at what we're spending money on, I mean, our comprehensive community plan does call out as the top priority to preserve cultural and historical resources. And also, Jim, to your comment about the open space and large parcels being protected already, I think that, you can clearly see the value in many other parcels in our open space and recreation plan, specifically smaller parcels. They provide habitat connectivity or perhaps connectivity for residents to access some of those conservation lands and trails. And it was very clear from the public input that folks realized the connection between land conservation and water protection, since the town relies on drinking water. So even small parcels, if they're protecting, wetlands or an aquifer recharge, if it's near a well, or even things that aren't necessarily providing drinking water, but a stream or a vernal pool, those parcels that are not really, really large are also equally valuable, in my opinion.
Okay, I think I've got your sentiments. I will relay those to CPC. I will not involve myself in these comments because I get another bite at the apple, so.
That was not helpful, was
No, it was actually. It was helpful looking at the projects that were not specifically mentioned. So, thank you. Next item, authorize town manager to sign utility easement 433 Massachusetts Avenue for proposed telecommunications facility at 9 Charter Road. John.
The school district is in the process of working towards having a telecommunications tower somewhere on their property. And in order to do it, they need an easement over a little piece of property that we control. We do have authority from town meeting to do easements like this, but it still needs a select board to have a discussion and approve it. So the information and the little piece of the road that's needed where the easement is located was in the packet, and this is something the town council has reviewed. The engineer and the attorney for the telecommunications tower company has been working with the school district, and we've been working with them to understand what this is and how it works. And it's been reviewed by council, and I'm asking for your authorization to move forward.
Melissa?
John, do we know, is this underground or above ground utility easement? Or either, whatever they need?
Jim?
It's mostly for maintenance access to a cell tower, but it allows for utilities to go underground as well. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? And I think one of the issues that is a little confusing to folks, and it was to me initially, was that that section of Charter Road has been turned over to the school district some time ago, but that tiny sliver is part of the original town school property, which is on a very long-term lease with Common Ground Development. I think it's a 99-year lease. So, we might get it all, well, I won't get it back. Some of you might be young enough to see it come back. Jim?
One technical concern I had about this is that the planning board, starts tomorrow with the process of dealing with, permit for the cell tower. And there are a number of waivers that the developer is looking for. A lot of them seem to be, we wrote our cell tower bylaw a while ago and technology has moved on. But still, it's an actual issue that the planning board will need to wrestle with. And then on top of that, they're also going to need a hazardous materials permit from the health department because of the backup system with propane on site. So it's not clear to me 100% that this cell tower project is going forward yet. And I wonder if we want to wait on, we could approve it now, but not sign it until after these permits are granted. The permits have to be dealt with by February because of the way the state law is now written. The town has 90 days to say yes or no to a cell tower. So towns can't just, age these things out of existence. But I didn't know if this needed to be done first or what we know about the order of things. I think that's a question for one of you guys.
Yeah, so the process before the planning board is not something that I'm asking the board to weigh in on. This is strictly an access easement, just like if Verizon were looking to access it. So there certainly is a proceeding underway in other parts of our government, but I'm not asking you to weigh in on that tonight.
That makes sense. I mean, if we give them an easement and they don't use it, it's not like they paid us a bunch of money for it.
David?
So this would allow the town manager to sign it? We would be authorizing the town manager to sign it. So my question is, John, would you sign this before planning board approval? Or would you wait until after the planning board approved, or not?
I think I would take any specific direction that the board has, but I would sign it whenever they ask me to, if the board asks. If the board authorizes us to use it, I have no reason to withhold my signature. And if they don't end up getting a permit, then they may have access to a little piece of that property. And I don't know how that would put us at risk. I guess, I mean, I don't know, I guess I haven't thought about it. I'm thinking about it live, sorry.
So I'm just, I read the easement at home, but now I'm wondering if it's a non-exclusive easement, right? So suppose we granted them the easement, they didn't go through, and then something else wanted to happen. I'm going to look for the word.
I mean, but that happens in land use all the time. I mean, if someone builds a driveway there, then someone else wouldn't be able
It says
to.
solely in connection with providing service to grantee's communications facility.
Yes, also it says I just looked in point 1, it says non-exclusive. So I can try to do a motion when you'd like.
Please do.
I move that we authorize the town manager to sign a utility easement at 433 Massachusetts Avenue for a proposed telecommunications facility at 9 Charter Road whenever the project schedule dictates.
I get a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions.
I abstain.
Okay, thank you. Item 12, approve 2026 license renewals as listed in the packet. And thankfully, we don't have to read through all of them. I think.
But we could.
I think Lisa's put together a suggested motion, which I don't have in front of me. If somebody else got it.
Do we need to move all of the individual motions that you have in quotes? Yes? I move to approve a Section 12 license to expose, keep for sale, and to sell all kinds of alcoholic beverages to be drunk on premise. And do I list all of the
Down at the bottom of
businesses?
the page,
Oh, sorry. Nope.
somewhere.
Oh, move to approve. I move to approve all 2026 license renewals as listed in the packet. Thank you.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve all licenses listed in the packet. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Item 13, approve letter of support for Municipal Empowerment Act. Jim?
So we actually already did this in one sense. Back in May, Alyssa drafted and the board approved a letter to our entire legislative delegation right at the moment that the governor put the legislation forward. What's slightly different about this one, my version, is that it's just directed to our House members, our House representatives, because there is now a House bill with a specific number. So I'm okay with either sending this letter or just figuring we already asked them, whatever the board wishes to do. Because I'd forgotten about the May letter. I was reminded of it after I wrote this one.
I'd be in favor of sending the letter. I think, just reminding folks, just staying on record that we're still in favor of it. I think it doesn't hurt to remind Representative Cataldo and Representative Sena that we're still in support of that. So I'd be good with signing it. Everybody seems to be in agreement.
I move to approve the letter of support for the Municipal Empowerment Act and to authorize Dean to sign it.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, I will sign that. Item 14, discuss DPW project. This is sort of a recap, if anybody would like to discuss the results of the meeting we had with the Finance Committee. There's a couple of long-standing rumors and falsehoods that have sort of circulated around that and there's only three in particular that stick in my craw that I'd like to, go through. Item number one, lay off mechanics at DPW and outsource all the work. So, we presently have 3 mechanics working to maintain our municipal fleet, consisting of around 100 vehicles. These mechanics work full-time. I checked with a local garage that has mechanics that maintain cars and light trucks. This is the same mechanic that I use. They charge $150 per hour for labor. If we were to outsource the entire mechanic operations, $150 an hour times 80 hours, it ends up at $312,000 per mechanic per year, so times 3. We're looking at potential labor cost of $936,000 per year. And those are for mechanics who work on cars and light trucks. You get into higher, bigger diesels and more specialized equipment, the hourly rates will probably increase. Obviously, this would have to be bid out. It would be subject to prevailing wage. The number might go up, might go down. I expect it's going to go up more than that. When I spoke with the head mechanic at the contractor that I use, what he said was, "What, are you guys crazy? You've got 100 vehicles. Why would you have a fleet of 100 vehicles with no mechanics? And if you don't have mechanics and you outsource everything, you've got to, for instance, police cruisers breaking down, you'd have to haul them to Watertown. You'd have to haul stuff to remote locations. You've got the cost of moving the piece of equipment, having the driver there, and then bringing it back, and waiting in line. And, I had some repairs done on one of my personal vehicles at a different mechanic, and I had to wait 3 weeks to get parts. So I don't understand how we would save anything if we're looking at replacing 3 of our mechanics and figuring that we're going to be buying well over $1 million in contracting costs per year, and have a less responsive situation, and try finding one of those mechanics at 2 o'clock in the morning in the middle of a snowstorm. We have to be able to respond to that. So that's issue 1. Can I ask you a question? Yes.
So I have one question about that. Do we have any information about whether there are any other communities with a comparable size fleet that does not have mechanics on staff and contracts out their services? I'm not talking about a town that might have a dozen vehicles, because maybe it makes more sense.
I personally have no information about that. I know in the conversation we had with Weston and Sampson with the designs that they've done in 50 or 60 towns, all of them have the same sort of thing with mechanics. Item number 2, locate office staff to remote locations. And we went over this in detail at ActonTV, but it needs to be repeated. we're providing office or cubicle space to 9 individuals. Most of them are working with the crews as first or second line supervisors. The jobs of those first and second line supervisors to supervise, train, mentor, and support the work crews on a daily basis. Having these folks move to a remote location would be akin to having the principals and vice principals of our schools move to Nagog Park. It would be the same as having the store managers and department managers in a supermarket work from a location remote from the store operations. Those employees who are not direct supervisors work in direct support of the crew and the supervisors, such as in procurement, business managers, or engineering support. Thinking that you can separate your first line supervisors from the crews that are actually doing the work is only suggested by somebody who does not understand how we operate. And obviously, this is a failure of ours to communicate, because no matter how many times we say this, it keeps coming back. And I don't know how to resolve that.
Hand raise.
Yes.
If I understand the process that Scott was taking us through, or wanted to take us through at that joint meeting, he's preparing for an eventual vote of the Finance Committee. He hasn't wanted to rush into that. And part of that process was to lay out some of the ideas that have been said by, 1 or 2 Finance Committee people in response to, last year's, big DPW proposal. It was my impression that there is not a majority on the Finance Committee that thinks either of those 2 ideas is a great way forward. But Scott's trying to be complete, and he's trying to bring along the people who were wedded to those ideas by saying, okay, we're going to say this idea out loud, and we're going to hear from people about it. And then we'll move on after writing our little list of pros and cons. So I don't think that bringing that up at that meeting was an attempt to, have these ideas, become the ideas that we're all going to agree to. Far from it. I think it was an attempt to have the ideas heard and listened to and responded to as part of a process of getting to a vote. Because in the past, the FinCom has been so split in different factions of people who thought, this idea would save money or that idea would save money. And, I thought the meeting was an attempt to, have us understand that these interesting but unhelpful ideas are in fact unhelpful. So I'm not concerned about us trying to convince people. I think the ideas have already been listened to, and they will quietly go away.
I hope so. Thank you for that much more calm and measured approach, Jim. Number 3, the highway fleet has too many redundant vehicles. Unlike a business operation, DPW needs to be able to respond at all times to provide public safety and access, including plowing streets and storm damage response. Unlike a business, we cannot just tell our customers they will have to wait. Considering the critical nature of the task, we need to provide a full fleet for our employees, plus a reasonable number of backup vehicles to be able to always respond. Equipment breaks down. Parts take a while to get. The wait time for new equipment is lengthy. For example, the wait time for our aerial lift truck for the tree division was well over 18 months. Buying new equipment is costly, and makes sense to keep some older but still serviceable pieces in reserve for use when needed, just as we rotate the fire trucks from first line to reserve, so we are never caught short. So I think those are 3 particular issues. Going back to I'll give you an anecdote. I had a conversation with a gentleman from the building committee for the DPW project on Truro, on the Cape, and they're going through the same sort of discussion we're having, especially with, why don't you park all the vehicles outside? And they pointed out that in addition to all of the issues that we've raised, you have this salt fog situation that eats up the vehicles even faster. So if you think we're in bad shape, they've got it worse. It's always some comforting to hear that. I don't know if anybody else has anything they'd like to add. David?
Yeah, I have to say that compared with our previous two meetings last year, joint meetings on DPW with FinCom, I really appreciate the fact that I thought this one was the most productive, right? I felt that after the last two, we were kind of arguing points back and forth, and I from my point of view, I couldn't say that we made any progress. But I think in this one, there was considerable understanding of and vetting of the various alternatives. I mean, was it perfect? No, but I appreciate the format and I think, again, from my point of view, it was the best one so far. Maybe there's a even better format, but I think it was definitely worth the time. Whereas after the last two, it was hard for me to point to anything that was accomplished. I was happy to meet, but I couldn't point at the end that we accomplished something. Here, I think we did accomplish something.
Thank you. Alyssa?
Echoing what David said about comparing the most previous meeting with the ones we had earlier this year, I think the two that we had earlier this year, we didn't produce anything, but we got to a point where it was clear, well, first of all, I feel like the entire finance committee was at those other two, and this time at ActonTV, there was only half of them, so that may have influenced the outcome. So that's the first point. The second point is, even though we didn't produce something in those first two discussions here in this room, we came to an understanding that we really were listening to one another and understanding. We just didn't have agreement. And so what I really appreciated about the ActonTV location meeting was that there were lots of things that we agreed on. So select board members and FinCom members agreed on the pros of this scenario or agreed on the cons of that scenario. And what we produced, and this was the other aim, as I understood it, of the FinCom chair, was recording that residents, that voters could watch to understand that, oh, we really have been talking about many different alternatives and thoroughly vetting them. I did hear from a handful of folks that they found it, from the public, that they found it very informative, so that's good. What I did find very confusing was that we kept getting directed by the chair of the FinCom away from discussing costs, which was confusing to me because this was proposed by the Finance Committee, who's focused on the costs of things. So we did discuss costs of, cost of renting or cost of repairing. So I appreciate that you're bringing in the numbers, the dollar amounts into the clarifications that you just presented tonight, Dean.
Thank you. Other comments? Fran?
I have comments, but they're not good. I was grumpy at that meeting and felt like not a team player, I must be honest. And everything that I heard and listened to pointed me to our original option and how cost effective it would be and how it would be, in the long run, the best option. And I don't think of myself as a stubborn person, but I'm a stubborn person, I guess.
Thank you for that insight. Alyssa?
Just one quick follow-up to that, Fran. I think that it is very important for us to acknowledge that this is a more costly path because we are going to have to address the garage 10 years from now, 15 years from now, and with a 5% annual increase in construction costs, it's going to be more over the long term. And I appreciate that Corinne brought up the fact that none of these options that we are discussing is more than a, temporary fix. So I think the reality is, following on the heels of an operating override, current financial constraints with the schools in the town and our budget, the uncertainty of the economy and tariffs, people losing jobs, I think that this is something, even though it's not what we wanted, it's not what staff needs, it's not the most economic solution over the long term, it's the only thing that's possible right now. We are going to have to pay more in the long term, but it will be over a longer period of time rather than upfront, one best solution, one ideal solution, just because of willingness to support it.
David?
Yeah, I think we have to acknowledge the fact that, last year, we explicitly agreed to disagree with the Finance Committee. This year, we kind of recorded some understandings. But I think we have to acknowledge that the town did not approve our requests for whatever reason, right? Some of that certainly was influenced because the Finance Committee did not recommend the project, and that influences people. There were also other objections that people talked about at town meeting. This is not uncommon, and Dean can maybe account the number of times that it happens in his career that we've gone through multiple requests for fire stations or other facilities until we agreed on one with town meeting. And I think, we might have our preferences, and I'm wouldn't dispute what you said, but we also have to agree with town meeting and with the ballot vote in order to do this. So, I think that's the important thing to acknowledge. And I also want to just be really clear, because I know what you meant, but you talked about Corinne saying that all these were temporary solutions. I don't want anybody in town to think that we're wasting any money by putting a Band-Aid on it. What we've decided to do is to solve one half of the problem long-term, and the other half short-term that'll come back a generation later, right? And so it's not that the whole thing is just a temporary structure or anything. Basically, we've split the problem into two, long-term now, and for one, long-term for the other later. So
I apologize if I said temporary. I meant not permanent, because that's what Corinne said. She said none of these are permanent solutions.
Right. I just wanted to make sure that anybody listening understood. Thank you.
Okay. Item 15, discuss Acton Leadership Group. John?
We had a meeting last week, well-attended, and I think it was very productive. We went into the meeting with a deficit, well, the deficit that we're facing in FY27 is much less than we thought it was going to be when we were doing our planning about a month and a half ago. A few of the things that changed are, first, the Minuteman School District has determined that enrollment has declined in a way that the assessment has declined, so it's actually going to be going down 1% instead of increasing. So that helped. The Acton Boxborough School District their school committee had issued budget guidance to the superintendent for what the budget should look like, and it was between 3.75 and 4.25. And so with that change to 4.25, it was a significant reduction from what had been in there. And the select board gave direction to me to make the town budget come in at 3.25. So those three things got the deficit under $1 million. Interestingly, at the meeting, the school superintendent, Peter Light, reported that because of some further work that they've been doing with the budget for the school committee, he had us adjust the Acton Boxborough School District assessment down further to the lower end of the range that they had been looking at for planning purposes. So that brought the deficit that we're looking at for FY27 to under 500,000, which at this point in the process is very manageable. There are several ways that we could balance the budget through revenues and adjustments to expenditures. And so it's a very good place to be. I mean, the way we got there, you might say, is in a very happy way, but I think some of the changes that the school district are considering are all being considered while they're also reducing their assessment to meet the constraints that we have right now. So good news on 27, I think. We did make some adjustments to the town plan going out. The school district has not looked at the out years, so the deficits in the out years are still higher than you'd like them to be, but they had indicated that they're not going to really address those until they have direction from the school committee about the restructuring plans. So the next ALG meeting is January 29th at 7:30 a.m. in this room. That's a Thursday morning. At that point in the process, we would have already presented the town manager's recommended budget the first week of January. We would have already had the budget workshops with the finance committee on the 14th and the 20th. And the school district would be about a week out from presenting their budget. So we'll be pretty far along at that point. And so I think we're in good shape for 27. I wanted to revisit with the board, if you're interested, in the 3.25 recommendation. We were able to make that work with preliminary budgets. We're still finalizing what the actual budget recommendation will be. But coming in at 3.25, we took most of the reductions in capital. Which is interesting because when we invest in capital, it doesn't really impact the deficit. So I think it's a fiscally responsible notion, but in terms of having a balanced budget every year, it's not really having a measurable impact. It's just kind of showing our number as a 3.25, which makes it look better. But in practice, every penny we spend on capital, at least in the last few years, comes directly from free cash, which is directly allocated. So if we spent $950,000 on capital, we'd put $950 in free cash. If we did $2 million in capital, we'd put $2 million in free cash, and the deficit wouldn't change. So that observation I just wanted to raise with all of you, and wondered whether you had any thoughts about that, if you wanted your direction to us on how to finalize this budget, to be more focused on operations and having them not grow at a rate, for example, or we could just run with what we have, and I'm happy to do that too. I just wanted to mention that we're going to be publishing the budget in about a week and a half or sooner. So.
David. So I'm content with the way you've done this. And I feel that even though we've reduced the capital expenditures this year, we have a big item in the town hall project. I know that's borrowed capital, but still it's a big thing, right? And it'll increase debt service for the town. And it is being defrayed by the very large grant from climate leader communities and probably incentives from the utilities, but still, it's still a big project. And moving forward with the DPW. So, and, you know, there still might be a couple of little things that get added. So I'm very content with the way things is done. I do think we're going to have to, after free cash is certified, we're going to have to take a look at that balance and see what the best thing to do is. Possibly transferring some into the capital stabilization makes sense, but we'll have to look at that when after free cash is certified.
Alyssa?
John, do you have a preview for us what changes might be made to operations if we directed you to go down from 3.25 to 3.1 or even 3.0? What would you be targeting?
Well, as presented at the last meeting, the way that we got to the area of around 3%, 3.25 was by really targeting reductions in supplies and services. You know, budget line items that were 20,000, we made 15,000, and ones that were 10,000, we made 9,000. And we did that a bunch of times to get it down. We shifted some funding for positions, well, a position from the building department into the building revolving fund because it's set up that way, and so that shift creates a savings. If you asked for further reductions, I would continue to do that, unless you were asking to go significantly lower. We wouldn't be talking about cutting any staffing, just moving staffing around and continuing to find small adjustments that could be made that people could live with, even if they don't want to.
Jim?
One thing you did, which I appreciated, was you brought forward, out of all the different personnel requests from all the departments, you picked out a few that were that seemed the most urgent. And then we agreed not to fund those. So I feel like in a sense, we have been taking some of these cuts out of operations. I mean, because you started from a big set of requests from departments, you brought us a smaller request, and then we ended up with essentially, not totally, but essentially none of those. And you're now, figuring out, continuing doing what you've been doing, which is to, figure out, hey, if there's an open position, maybe that's an opportunity to reorganize and rearrange so that we, get more even coverage out of the things that are really the most important. And I appreciate that. So I feel like you have been doing operations cutbacks in a way that is appropriate. And I get your point about how cutting capital doesn't bring down the deficit in the current year, but it does bring it down in future years because you don't have that, the future debt payment. So I think it's helpful in dealing with our deficit to pay attention to, capital projects that may not be needed or may not be needed this year, or if we don't do them this year, maybe we'll rethink them in the future. I'm comfortable with the direction you're going.
I'm good at the 3.25 too. Yeah.
Yeah. Personally, I'm comfortable with where we are as far as the operating budget. I would not contemplate any other cuts. As far as capital goes, I think it all depends on what our free cash number looks like. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have extra free cash reserved in some way, because who knows what next year or the year after is going to bring. We've got lots of uncertainties out there. We heard the discussion tonight about issues of stormwater management. we've all seemed to be in favor of a stormwater utility, but maybe we need to accelerate that funding beyond what the utility could generate in the short term. And we've got the uncertainty about where we're going with our fire stations. We know that we're going to end up having to do some significant upgrades of at least one fire station. So having a little extra money is not a bad thing. I like David's idea about, maybe putting the money into the capital stabilization. If it looks like we've got an unreasonable amount of free cash sitting there, capital stabilization might be good. It's awkward to get it in there, it's awkward to get it back out, but at least we know that we can get it and we can reserve, we can rely on it if need be. So I think you've done a fine job putting the budget together, so I don't see the need to tweak anymore between now and the new year. So with that, unless somebody has something else they'd like to discuss, which is not on the agenda, I'm looking for a motion.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? We are adjourned. I was busy taking the victory lap.